All right, big Thursday night on the Krug Show, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle. Behind that mask could be Dieter Kurtenbach, but I'm not sure. We're going to talk a little Niners right now. Join us, and happy Halloween. And we get it rolling on the Krug Show. There he is, Dieter Kurtenbach.
Hi, Larry.
I like the hat, man. The hat.
Hey.
What are you? What were you?
I was a pumpkin, and now I'm just a random guy, which makes me the new Giants GM.
There you go. We're joined by Zach Manasian. Thank you. We're brought to you, of course, by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out, and they do run out. So get there early, get some brisket chili, go say hi to Damon, say hi to Mary. Tell them that Krug sent you. And, of course, we will be there for our meet and greet this Sunday from noon until 6 p.m. at Corte Madera. So stop by, have some beers, have some barbecue, watch some football, hang out with us. I'll be there. Kev will be there. Paulie Mack's going to be in the house, believe it or not.
Hey, now.
So thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Thanks to Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles. They're at 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove, California, on the Monterey Peninsula. Call my friend Anthony Catania at 831-521-5264. There's our meet and greet from last time. So it's this Sunday, November the 3rd, 341 Corte Madera Town Center, right there in Marin County in Corte Madera Mall. And we'll be there. We'll be there at noon, and we'll be there till 6. Stop by, kind of an open house, real casual, but we're looking forward to it. And thanks to Pig and a Pickle for hosting us. We're really excited about that. So stop by and say hello. Should be a good day. And of course, we are also brought to you by Better. And we like to thank our good friends at Better. This live stream sponsored by Better, the official daily fantasy sponsor of the Krug Show. Use Better to make daily fantasy lineups and win real money. And download the app below. Make sure you use the promo code Niners. Get your first deposit matched up to $200. Everybody who signs up is automatically entered into a drawing to win this, a Fred Warner jersey. And if you look closely, it's autographed. That's right, an autographed Fred Warner jersey. All you got to do is download the app below. Make sure you use the promo code Niners, and you'll get that first deposit matched up to $200, but you'll also automatically be entered into a drawing for this beauty, a 49er red Fred Warner 54 jersey autographed by Fred. How about that?
That's a Hall of Fame signature right there, Larry.
Yeah. Great guy.
At the ground level.
Terrific player. And we should mention that Dieter, you and I last week won. We won on Better.
What's new, Larry? All we do is win.
Yeah, we've had a lot of success winning. I think we've won 3 or 4 times already, but we won last week. I don't remember what we went with.
It was probably like a Purdy long run. Something about
Well, we definitely have gone with the Purdy run. That is a consistent
yards. Yeah. Mason carries. Like it's we're not that creative, but if they want to give us the number, we should take the number.
There you go. We kind of know what we're talking about in this. So anyway, thanks to Better for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. There we go. This is what we had.
Oh, nice.
We had Tolbert over 36.5 receiving yards. Mm-hmm. He wound up with 44. We had unders, Carlson making at least 2 field goals. He made 3.
That's right.
And then we had Brock Purdy with a long run of at least 10 yards because we went more than 9.5, and he ran for 16 on one run.
It's easy money, Lair. It's easy money.
And what I guess we had.
Mason went out in the first half, so I think we get some protection from that one.
Oh, that's right. Mason went out, so we get protection, and there we go. We win 4-1 on that, so we put down 10. We win 40. So the Tolbert one was a little dicey, but we got it. We hit it.
The fourth quarter of that game insured. That was for Better only. That was what that fourth quarter was about. Niners turned it on in the third, and then they're like, you know what? Let's make sure that Dieter and Larry hit this parlay.
Now Kev started off with the 5 D linemen that potentially could be traded to the Niners. But, I do have that one amazing stat that I feel like I almost need to throw to you because you kind of referenced it just a second ago.
Yeah.
Did you know? This is kind of an interesting one, Dieter, I think. Did you know the Niner defense in the fourth quarter in points allowed this year under the Sorensen-Staley regime, 30th in the NFL in points per quarter? Okay. It cost them the game against the Rams. It cost them the game against the Cardinals. It literally almost cost them against Seattle, and it almost cost them against Dallas.
Yeah.
Last year, under Steve Wilkes, guess where the 49ers ranked for the entire season in fourth quarter points allowed? First. They were the best team in football last year with Steve Wilkes as the defensive coordinator for points allowed in the fourth quarter, and now they're 30th under Sorensen and Staley.
Yeah.
What say you?
Yeah. Well, that's what happens when you have a crappy defensive line and a defensive line that you can't rotate. You have a bunch of guys, Nick Bosa, Malik Collins, standing out at the forefront who are just gassed by the time the fourth quarter comes about. This is what happens when you don't have a good weak side linebacker. And you do have that defensive line where guys are able to get not only to them, but get to the second level. And they're isolating a guy like Devondre Campbell one-on-one in the run game and the pass game. This is what happens when you have 2 young, 1 rookie, 1 second-year safeties. And you want to play a 2-high shell, that's fine. But those guys are not going to be able to make plays consistently standing where they're at. So I think it's strictly a personnel issue. It starts, again, with the defensive line. You have no backups on this team. You can say what you will. There's some positive things to say about some of the depth at defensive tackle, but there's a lot of guys who are all pretty much the same. Here's Kalia Davis. Oh, here's Kevin Givens. Oh, here's Jordan Elliott, Jordan Elliott should wear 90 because that's the amount of degrees he turns every time there's a run play. Just opens the Red Sea parts when the Niners wear their red jerseys in the middle. So I'm with you. I think the Niners probably need to make a trade at the deadline. They need to make a trade for a defensive tackle. But when you don't even have a backup for Bosa, when you're running Robert Beal out there, it's going to wear down a player even of that high caliber. When you got Leonard Floyd and his backup is Sam Aquanu, who has to play a lot of defensive tackle on third downs, that's going to wear those guys down. They don't have the depth at defensive line, and that is where you need to be at your best, particularly if you're leading in the fourth quarter, because that's where you stop the run first, and that's how you end passing plays when team is, just playing too high coverage. You win with your defensive line, and so far the Niners just have not won with their defensive line, and they wear down as the game goes along.
It's funny. I'm glad that you took a strong stance on the D line. I will say this. I don't think it's just the defensive line. I mean, you're young in the back end. You're not as good on the second level, and you're not as deep up front. But I think it's part of kind of the overarching story around this franchise. They missed on 7 number 1 picks. They got rid of 5 or 6 key defenders to go sign Hargrave. Then Hargrave got hurt. And then you add in another 4 or 5 significant injuries with the depletion of the depth in the Hargrave trade, with the depletion of the depth by missing on 7 number 1s. And you have, despite their successes on day 3, despite their successes after the draft in the undrafted market, you have a roster that's a little thinner than it should be, and it's a little devoid of premier talent because they've missed so much at the top. And when you have that, and you're seeing it at the D-line, you're seeing it at the linebacker, you're seeing it, really spread throughout the roster. Their offensive line should have another blue chipper. Doesn't. Their defensive line should have another star. They don't. They should have more depth at linebacker. They don't. You know what I'm saying? They're thin. They're relatively thin compared to, they've done an amazing job on day 3. They've done an amazing job in the undrafted market, which gives them bodies. Right. But not necessarily impact guys. And what they really lack on offense and defense on the perimeter, for example, is speed. It's just
Yes.
pure speed. And
Yes.
where do you get speed? You get speed on day 1 and day 2 of the NFL draft. And they've missed a lot on day 1 and day 2 of the NFL draft. And then you mix in the pursuit of Hargrave and essentially, who had to be sacrificed for his addition, and then mix in 4 or 5 key injuries, and there you have it. Are they awful? No. They're still pretty good. They were the deepest team in football if they had just drafted better, and not gone after one big-time free agent at the expense of 4 or 5 key cogs, and if they had, been a little bit healthier. So I think that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at a team that overall is just thin across the board, and so they're getting to guys at this point with some injuries that you're like, whoa, that guy's playing, this guy's in there all the time. I mean, that's kind of where they're at. So it illustrates that they need to add, I think, at the trade deadline. It's coming up on Tuesday. It's the same day as Election Day. Yeah. Kyle Posey, our friend on Niners, or at least my friend. I don't know if you know Kyle Posey.
I know Kyle. Okay, yeah.
Okay,
we're
acquaintances for Niners Nation. Okay, he's a good guy and he's a good writer, and he's a sharp guy. Yeah. He had an article about the 4 defensive linemen that the 49ers ought to pursue. And he threw out some interesting names. Davon Godchaux from New England, defensive tackle.
Yep.
Baron Browning, who was a stacked linebacker, who was a teammate of Nick Bosa's at Ohio State. Yeah. They transitioned him to a defensive end spot. So now he's kind of a stacked backer body playing defensive end, but he's actually pretty good rushing the passer because he's really good going forward. But he's a little on the small side for the wide 9, based on what we've seen the Niners use. Then there's Azeez Ojulari, New York Giants.
Right.
There's Zadarius Smith from the Browns.
Smith. Yep.
Yeah, he's a veteran. He's got a couple more years on his deal. Those are the 4 D linemen he threw out. I'll throw out 3 more. Calais Campbell is a guy who can, play a bunch of different spots. He's very scheme versatile. He's out there.
Yep.
And the 2 guys, if you said to me, the Niners are most likely to add what at the deadline, I would say D-line. And if you said to me, okay, so now of all the positions you've centered on the D-line, now of all the people out there, who do you think they would get? If you made me predict right now, I would say that they would make 2 different deals. One for Jadeveon Clowney, maybe for like a 5th or 6th round pick. Okay. And the other for like a late day 3 pick swap to the Titans for Sebastian Joseph Day. Sebastian Joseph Day was a Niner last year. He went to Tennessee this year. He's having a career year.
Yeah.
Clowney as well has been a little bit better than I thought. He obviously still can play. He's very versatile, scheme versatile, and you can line him up all over the place. If I had to guess, I mean, I love Ojulari. And I think that would be the guy to get. And I don't know that they need a defensive tackle because I'm a big Evan Anderson fan, and I think Anderson might be better than some of these guys that they could get. But if you said to me, what do I think they'll do? I think they'll make a minor deal for Sebastian Joseph Day and a medium-sized deal for Jadeveon Clowney and call it a day. That's my guess.
That sounds extremely fair to me, and it obviously would address not 1 but 2 positions of need. Let's be clear about one thing here before we kind of get into my nitty-gritty. They're not touching the 4 top 100 picks that they have. They have a pick in the 1st round, 2nd round, and 2 in the 3rd. They can't touch them because they are still a 4-4 team. And I know that they believe, and I think they're right to believe, that their Super Bowl window remains open, but they also have a window where 1 twisted ankle, 1 busted knee makes this team draft in the top 10. You go 7-11 or 10, you draft in the top 10. And that's very much on the table for this 49ers team as well, given how they've performed so far. So they have to hedge against that possibility. Let me throw 3 different names at you here.
Okay.
B.J. Hill, defensive tackle, Cincinnati Bengals. That's the kind of player.
NC State, right? He played at NC State, I think.
He is a big, meaty boy.
295. What is it?
He's a little higher than that. I think he's about 6'3", 315.
Okay.
And he's a gap holder. And that's what I'm leaning in on. I love the Calais Campbell possibility. I'm big on Calais Campbell. If the Dolphins lose to the Bills this weekend, I do think Calais Campbell's on the move. So B.J. Hill, I don't know where the Bengals stand right now, but if they decide they're out, BJ Hill would be a great option there. Shelby Harris, Cleveland Browns. This is a
Good
guy
pass rusher.
Yep, good pass rusher, but is also someone who can hold the gap. Big boy, can hold the gap. And that's what this team really needs, because Malik Collins, a lot like Javon Hargrave, is somebody who's trying to split gaps. That's what the wide nine, easy for me to say, is all about. You're splitting gaps. Well, you can use that aggression against a defense if you have the right blocking scheme. And again, I think team after team knows what to do, especially late in games against this one. Here's a name that I wasn't deeply familiar with, but the more I've looked into him, the more I'm all in on Jeremiah Ledbetter, defensive tackle, Jacksonville Jaguars. This dude anchors. I don't know what to call it, but
give me some Jeremiah Ledbetter breakdown, Dieter. I don't know my Ledbetter. I knew a Ledbetter that was in the Canadian League with us.
Yeah.
I used to bum dips for me. He'd put an entire can of Copenhagen in his bottom lip while playing, not like after the game on the sideline. While he was in there pursuing running backs, this guy would put half a can of Copenhagen in. His name was Ledbetter. He was really smart. I don't think it's the same guy. What what is this Ledbetter? What is his size? What is his position?
I'm pulling up the size now, but when I watch the tape, what I see is a dude who you just cannot move. It is really impressive. They double team him a lot, and he absolutely not just holds his own, but just does not move. So he's an Orlando kid, played at Arkansas, 6th round pick in 2017. So he's older, right? He's in the final year of his contract. 6'3", 300 pounds. He's playing higher than that, if we're being honest.
So he's a big defensive tackle.
Big defensive tackle. And we're talking about a gap holder, not a gap splitter, right? This is not somebody who's going to be getting after the quarterback, exploding off the line. This is somebody who, when you run in that direction, you're going to have to go around him. He is a traffic pole. And the amount of double teams that I've seen against him this season, where he just puts his tree trunk legs in the ground and doesn't move, is unbelievable to watch when you consider what we've been watching all year with the 49ers. And the fact that somebody like this is available for, I can only imagine, a 6th, a 7th round pick. I mean, it's probably a swap of those two, is the kind of small but mighty move that good teams in weird situations need to make, because there's no downside whatsoever to adding a player like Ledbetter, who is just going to give you really solid reps in stopping the run. You only have to play him on 1st and 2nd down. You're already trying to move Sam Aquanu inside. You're going to get Yetur Gross-Matos back. He can be a 1st and 2nd down player, but he's something that the 49ers haven't had. And I would say Hill is like this. I'd say Harris is like this to a degree. I think Calais Campbell is certainly like this at age 38. It's someone who can just hold a flipping gap and not get washed out play after play. If I see Jordan Elliott get moved 5 yards behind the scrimmage like he's Javon Kinlaw again, I'm going to pull my hair out. I can't live like this anymore, Larry.
What we're hearing is Missouri on Missouri crime, ladies and gentlemen. That's Missouri on Missouri crime.
Missouri can't even score, so there's no crime to be. You can't divide by zero, Larry. We're all in bad moods, and let me just tell you right now, I can't do it anymore with this defensive tackle group. Again, as I said earlier, anytime they wear the red uniforms, parting of the Red Sea. Even Dallas.
Symmetry 7 says Ledbetter's a tough cat. There's some Ledbetter knowledge here.
He is just a hoss. And I can't blame anyone for not having Ledbetter knowledge. I recently acquired it, and I'm supposed to be a pro at this thing. But I've been really, really impressed. He's bounced around a lot because he is not a flashy player. But man, just get somebody who you can put in the one gap, or put in the one technique, put in the A gap, and isn't going to move. Because the issue the 49ers have is when you're moving these defensive tackles out of the way, well, now you can get that second level blocker to Fred Warner. And of course, that's easier said than done to get hands on him. But they're isolating Devondre Campbell again and again and again in the run game. And you're not going to be playing the Dallas Cowboys, who don't know what they're doing in the run game. And by the way, move the ball okay when they did run the ball. Now they passed it better. But like there were some moments where you're like, damn, are they actually running the ball here? You're going to be playing Green Bay and Buffalo and Chicago and the Rams. Miami. You're going to be going up against some teams that can actually run the football here and can actually get second level blocks in a zone scheme or even in a gap scheme. And with the deficiencies that you have in setting the edge overall, and the deficiency that you have at weak side linebacker, whether it's D. Winters or Devondre Campbell, or if we got to be blunt about this, Dre Greenlaw coming back, he wasn't exactly a great edge setter. He was an impact player because he played with so much juice, but now he's coming off an Achilles injury. And so he's got to be more fundamental to cover up for some of the lack of athleticism. And I'm not sure that that's going to just show up. There's issues here. Get me someone who can just hold ground. And I think a lot of things would fall into place for the 49ers. I'm in on Ledbetter. I would love Calais Campbell. I think more people would say Calais Campbell. He's been around forever, like a 14-time Pro Bowl or some nonsense. I think it's actually 6. But if you told me Calais Campbell was in the Pro Bowl every year of his career, I'd believe you. One of those dudes who has massive pipes for arms and a gut. Those are the scariest dudes in the league. Those are the guys that I don't want to go against one-on-one. And I think there's a lot of good options. This is actually, strangely, given the Niners' desperate need for another defensive tackle, pretty good trade market, all things considered, to go get one.
Okay, let's hit that though, because I don't agree with that. They have Malik Collins, they have Jordan Elliott, they have Kalia Davis, who they really like. They have Kevin Givens, who coming into like this weekend, I think was leading them in sacks. And they have Evan Anderson, who's grading out at one of the highest PFF players in a short amount of time. He's enormously strong. And in some ways, he already is doing a lot of the things that, like DJ Jones potentially can do. He's powerful. He's strong at the point. I look at their defensive line and I think, okay, so I would love to have, a big time war daddy, Jeffrey Simmons or, somebody big time in there. Yeah. But in place of that, I don't think that the Ledbetters, I mean, I'm sure I don't know Ledbetter, so I shouldn't say, but is how much better is Ledbetter than Givens? How much better is he than Kalia? How much better is he than Evan Anderson? To me, the real need is defensive end. Bosa is great, but Leonard Floyd is old. And it's like, you need to spot Leonard Floyd. And the way they have it set up is
he's so on that.
Yeah, Leonard Floyd and this team has to play all the time. You're using Aquinu inside.
Yep.
Beal is too young, and Floyd is a little too old. And there's nobody behind those guys. It's Bosa, Floyd, Beal, and Aquinu, and that's it. That's Gross the Matos entire Gross Matos. But he's out.
I know.
He's gonna be out for a while. So I guess my thing is I think the real need is not. I mean, if you could get a defensive tackle, fine, but then you'd have to tell me you're paying Collins, you're paying Elliott. Mm-hmm. Kalia is probably one of your most, dynamic defensive line rushers. Givens is having a very good year for him, and I think Anderson's coming on. So I kind of like the interior. I just don't like the edge, especially since they're using Aquinu as a stand-up defensive tackle, in the A gap there against on obvious passing downs. So he's rushing from inside on obvious passing downs, which means that they're taking anytime you're going to take Bosa or Floyd off the field, the only guy you got is Beal. So I want a defensive end because I think you got to have at least 5 defensive ends, right? Floyd, Bosa, Beal.
This is going to be a terrible episode of First Take because I'm not disagreeing that they need a defensive end. Like I'm not saying.
But do you think a tackle is more vital than the end?
Yes, because not one of the guys that you've mentioned, a lot of the Kalia Davis, Kevin Givens, like it's all the same. It really is. Malik Collins is playing a lot of reps. What does it tell you when they're taking their best, and I mean this, their best 7 technique, their best strong side defensive end, and they're moving him inside on third downs? Like, it speaks to Sam Aquanu as a good player and someone that they trust and someone who's stout, but like the fact that they have to move him on the inside gives me the indication that they don't trust any of the defensive tackles to make a play. And okay, you can get one of them in there, but you have nothing but gap splitters, nothing but guys who are trying to fire off the line as fast as possible, which is always an advantageous thing to do. But in the case of these guys, they're trying to get up and under blocks so they can get into the backfield. That's how they make their impact. That's how they want to stop the run. That's the wide 9 system to a T. I need somebody who, if they don't get off the block immediately, can hold the gap. I mean, of course the Niners need also somebody to set an edge. That would be incredible, because far too often on this team, they're now leaving it to a guy like Diamador Lenore to set the edge, or Devondre Campbell to set the edge, which, by the way, watch the Chiefs game. Devondre Campbell setting the edge looked like he was operating in slow motion. It was legitimately hilarious on there was a Mecole Hartman.
Are you suggesting that Campbell's not an ideal defender?
I'm suggesting that if the 49ers had anybody else, they would have already benched him. And yet they are still looking for somebody to play over him. And they might rush back. They might rush back a guy coming off an Achilles injury. Listen, if they go defensive end, that's fine. I just think that if you can get a player at defensive tackle who you can put in and help shore up your run defense, I think that opens up opportunities elsewhere, because now you can actually play Ekwonu consistently on the outside, because now you're allowing Nick Bosa to get some more rest because you actually have that defensive end. Because when you move Ekwonu inside, now you lose another defensive end. Now you're playing Robert Beal. You might as well just put a traffic cone out there. He's not doing anything for you. So probably the best answer is the initial one you gave, Lair. Go and get one of each, but
yeah, if you can,
we'll see.
And maybe they pay a little bit more for one and a little bit less for another. We'll see. Sebastian Joseph Day just makes a lot of sense.
I like him.
One name that makes no sense, and I'll admit it, makes no sense, but it's also super. No, he makes no sense, and he doesn't make any plays either.
Yeah.
I saw a video today of a Dolphin reporter saying that Tyreek Hill is going to be traded by Tuesday.
Do you know the Dolphin reporter's name?
I don't, but it was a video, and it was on X.
I covered the Dolphins for 2 years, so I know.
Kind of a clean-cut, light-haired guy, short hair. He did a video. I tried to look for it this afternoon. You stumble onto things on Twitter, and then all of a sudden you just can't find it a couple hours later. I couldn't find it later, but basically the argument is that he was complaining on social media that the Dolphins, are using him too much as a blocker for their run game, and that he's being underutilized as a receiver, whatever. I saw another guy who also suggested that Hill may get dealt before Tuesday, which really surprised me. Now, okay, so I personally think this guy is, I think there's like 2% of guys in the NFL that are true difference makers.
Oh, yeah.
There's a few guys here and a few guys there. For the most part, most of the guys are not replaceable, but they're not true difference makers. There's only one Mahomes, you know what I mean? There's only one Justin Jefferson. There's only one Christian McCaffrey. I think Niners are finding that out, especially in the red zone. And there's only one Tyreek Hill. Yep. And he's just so explosive, so fast. I look at the other receivers. I look at the receiver position for the Niners, and I think you're not going to have Ayuk the rest of the year. You're not going to have Debo, next year. You may not have Ayuk next year either. You could be looking at next year with no Debo, no Ayuk, and Kittle at 31, and who knows, maybe McCaffrey coming off a ruptured Achilles. I mean, I kind of think that, they may need a big-time guy. This guy, in my opinion, is a true difference maker. I know it would cost a lot. They have, though, in the trade market and the midseason trade market, the draft picks are such gold bullion that nobody will, we just saw Deontay Johnson moved for nothing. And we just saw D-Hop go to the Chiefs for a fifth. Yeah. I think you could probably get Tyreek Hill for a couple day 2 picks at this point. And why not? I mean, I know it might blow up your salary a little bit, but this is a true difference maker. Oh, yeah. Ayuk is you're supposedly your deep guy. He's not going to be going deep anytime soon. And you don't have anybody else outside of Jacob Cowing that can go deep. I would consider Jacob Cowing and a couple picks to Miami for Tyreek Hill if I could. Even if I mean, they can make it work financially because they're $54 million under the cap. We know it's earmarked for Purdy. Lynch referenced the fact that, we don't want to, it's got to make sense for us financially. This probably doesn't and jumps outside of what makes sense financially.
No, it's absurd.
I don't know what his financial situation is.
It's $27.6 million in guaranteed money next year. Anybody who takes him on is probably eating about 15 million of that, and then oh god, I mean it's no guaranteed, but
couldn't you renegotiate and spread that across though?
you could, but the Niners have renegotiated everybody left, right, and center, and the reason that it's earmarked is because they need all of that money at the 50% tax rate just to make it possible to sign Purdy. This would essentially be taking every cent of that. If you have $56 million in cap space and you can only roll 50% of it over for next year, and I'm not going to pretend as if I know all the small minutia of salary cap, I just 50%. It's a pretty rudimentary ballpark figure. Well, his cap number is 27.6 next year, 27.7 next year. That's
so
about
it's
half.
It's not the most practical move. I mean, that's for sure.
It's definitely not practical.
But
it's going
if you won the Super Bowl this year, would it be palatable? Practical, no. Palatable if you win the Super Bowl this year.
I think
at some
everyone
point,
would consider it
you gotta go for it all the way in. I mean, they
haven't already.
Well, I'm just saying, are you ready to just drift away this season? Are you ready to just kind of take a half-hearted effort? You're still in your Super Bowl window with the best left tackle in football and one of the best tight ends in football, and they ain't getting any younger. I mean, are you good? You got a better chance to win next year when Purdy's making a lot and when Williams is a year older and Kittle's a year older. I'm just saying, look at the NFC. The Niners can go on the road and beat these teams. I just don't know. I know that the first half hasn't been very good. They're 4-4.
Right.
They have 5 tough games in the second half. They probably got to win 5 more games to get to the playoffs. Maybe 4, but probably 4 or 5. You're either going to have to go 8-9 or 9-8. I don't think even though it's the NFC West, I think it's still going to take 9-8.
I agree.
So you're going to have a good second half. But I mean, all these NFC playoff contenders, I think the Niners can beat every single one of them on the road in the playoffs if they have to go that route. They're in a weird spot. Would you at least admit that they're in a weird spot in that they want to win a Super Bowl? They're built to win now. They're in total go mode. They have plenty of room cap-wise to get their quarterback signed next year. They've done all the heavy lifting on that.
Right.
It's just they're right now they need a little bit more. I mean, with no IU, can they win the Super Bowl? In your opinion, I asked this question on KNBR Niners Nightly tonight. Can the Niners win the Super Bowl without a significant trade deadline acquisition in your mind? Because I would say, as much as I have enthusiasm for this team, I would say no.
Sorry to be pedantic.
I mean, you don't have to disagree.
Define significant. I don't. Obviously, Jeremiah Ledbetter doesn't qualify.
A starting caliber player that's one of your 5 best players on either your offense or your defense. That's what I call significant. Starter, he's automatically starting, and he becomes day one of your 5 best players on either side of the ball.
So we're talking a Pro Bowl, all-pro caliber player.
It doesn't have to be an all-pro, but I'm just saying there's only one all-pro per position. But, I'm not saying it's got to be Myles Garrett or anything, but I'm saying they need something big. I mean, like Sebastian Joseph Day. No, it could help, but that's not a significant addition. Jadeveon Clowney, I would say right there on the,
He's
kind
one
of
your 5 best players.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think potentially Clowney could be one of your 5 best players.
If it's the year 2018, right, I mean, sure, but
he's a little south of that. But let's say you got Clowney and Joseph Day. I'm just saying, I that's generally what I'm saying.
Okay. No, thank you. You're probably right. No, I think I'm with you that probably not. I think they can get damn close. I think that's going to require McCaffrey to come back. I think it's going to require Ricky Pearsall to have a second half that makes people wonder if he should be in the Rookie of the Year conversation. I think it requires probably multiple trades on the defensive side at a lower level. Ledbetter, could go down the line of all the players that we've named that weren't, pop off the page names. I think it requires all of those things to happen in concert, and that's pretty damn unlikely. So, no, I'm with you. This is clearly not a Super Bowl team. There's no evidence that they're a Super Bowl team. There's a lot of players, as Maitland notes here. Clowney can definitely help. No doubt about it. there's a lot of guys who can help. This team has deficiencies to where, frankly, you could go across the board and find a bunch of players that can help. That's not been the case for recent 49ers teams. There's been one glaring need or two glaring needs. But with this 49ers team, you could say, okay, you probably need to bring in a safety. You probably need to bring in a linebacker. You probably need to bring in a corner. You need to bring in a defensive tackle. You need to bring in a defensive end. You could upgrade on the offensive line. You can get a second tight end. You can go get a wide receiver. Hey, wouldn't it be great if you had another running back? Hell, you could even bring in a backup. Like, there's not a position where you can't get some help because no position group has really deserved an A this year, save for maybe tight end, and that's just one dude. I mean, Saubert's been kind of a mess, and they don't even play Tonjes. So I would love to see a David Njoku come to town. They absolutely need to make a trade somewhere, and I'm not sure that's even enough to get them into Super Bowl contention. But I'll say this. Going back to sort of the original conceit here, what does it say about Brock Purdy if the 49ers were, and I know they don't feel this way, but let's just, for the sake of argument, go down that road. If they were to say, we need to bring in Tyreek Hill, I think that speaks to the confidence that you have in your quarterback. If you need to constantly, even in situations where it is disadvantageous and imprudent, you constantly have to add weapons, that you can't just say this guy will cover up the holes that we have. If you don't believe that he can cover up the holes that the 49ers offense has, that you always have to have the best of the best around him, then you simply cannot pay him what you're planning on paying him. Now, I know that that's not how they feel, but the fact of the matter is it's still something we suggest, which is why Brock Purdy is such a divisive player outside of our circle. We're all in pretty much agreement he's pretty damn good. But it is interesting that a name like that can come up and it's not immediately discounted as, well, you can't do that because you got to pay Brock next year. You're like, well, how can we make it?
Mahomes has Xavier Worthy, Travis Kelce, and a whole bevy of weapons. They just added D-Hop. So does that mean they don't have confidence in Mahomes?
You say a whole bevy of weapons. They have Mecole Hardman. They have...
It's pretty good.
Mecole Hardman's pretty good when he plays the 49ers because they run the same fucking play for 40 yards a chunk every time. He's shitty against everybody else.
Come on, Dieter. You're saying the Chiefs don't have good weapons? The Chiefs do have good weapons. The Chiefs just won the Super Bowl. I mean, come on.
Isn't the entire narrative about the Chiefs that Patrick Mahomes is out there with nobody this year? Juju Smith-Schuster, the shell of Juju Smith-Schuster? They're playing Kareem Hunt, who they signed off the street.
That Noah Gray looked pretty damn good. Travis Kelce.
I like Noah Gray, but Travis Kelce's totally
first round pick worthy. Juju was playing well. They just added Hopkins. They've got Justin Watson, Mecole Hardman.
Watson?
No?
Are
they
we
got
really
the best interior offensive line in the game.
I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree.
Yeah, they got a pretty good team. They got a pretty good team.
They're undefeated.
I'm just saying
Justin
all these
Watson's
teams have added
a little different than, hey, maybe they should add Tyreek Hill. Like Justin Watson, are we seriously pushing that? Like,
I'm just saying they have guys. I mean, okay, we don't have to take Kansas City. We can go to Baltimore. I mean, Baltimore's got Derrick Henry, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, Zay Flowers, first round pick, and they still added Deontay Johnson.
Because
so I'm just saying you don't necessarily. It doesn't necessarily the quarterback.
I mean, I agree that it's not necessarily on the quarterback, but you have still one $20 million wide receiver in Deebo Samuel. You have a $19 million or $15 to $19 million tight end in George Kittle. You have the best left tackle in football, arguably. It's certainly paid like it. You have Christian McCaffrey still on the books, supposedly coming back. You have a first-round pick at wide receiver. You have Juwan Jennings, who might be the best third receiver in the game.
But you're slow at wide receiver.
I don't disagree.
Jennings slow, Deebo slow.
They
Ronnie
should have
Bell,
known this.
Slow.
How do you not? You and I knew this months ago, and so the fact that you're having to make those kind of adjustments to big macro situations mid-season, what's John Lynch doing? If those guys aren't good enough, you should have made a move for Deebo Samuel when you had the chance to make a move and try to bring in some speeds, even not at receiver, somewhere else. Like it's
they may be overvaluing their dudes. They may be overvaluing their guys. I mean, I heard Lynch tell KMBR that, hey, you know what? We don't need to make a trade. We have a bunch of guys coming back from injury. Okay. I mean, I'll give you that a little bit. Like,
It's true.
maybe you don't need a possession receiver because you got Jawan Jennings, and maybe you don't need a linebacker because you got Dre Greenlaw coming back. That's a big question mark. Maybe you don't need a dynamic running back because CMC's coming back, but that's a major question mark. Maybe you don't need a safety because you got a Fonga. Maybe you don't need a defensive tackle because Givens' groin will be okay. And maybe you'll be okay at defensive end because you got Yatir Gross-Matos. I mean, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, if you include Jake Moody, 7 starters, technically. I guess Jennings is not really a starter, but the other guys kind of are. You got 7 starters working their way back from injury. And, I don't know that they'll go 7 for 7. But maybe they'll go 4 for 7 or 5 for 7. I think Jennings is probably pretty safe. But Greenlaw and CMC and Hufanga, I think, are total question marks. I think Jennings, Givens, Gross-Matos, and Moody probably make it back and contribute. But CMC, Greenlaw, and Hufanga, who are 3 huge players for you, you don't know if you're going to get anything out of those 3 guys as 100%. We're sitting here on Halloween. So, I mean, it
comes back to the front office layer, and this is something I've been harping on. And everyone calls me a Debbie Downer. That's fine. They're 4-4. Clearly, I wasn't totally off base, but let me just throw you this. They did not do a good job in free agency. They didn't. Full stop. Was telling you that as it was happening. Leonard Floyd was a bust at the end of last year, and they brought him in thinking he would solve their problems. He didn't. I like some of the stuff that Yetur Gross-Matos put on film, but we don't have a good sample size with him yet. They didn't do anything to augment the offensive line. They didn't really do anything worthwhile at wide receiver except for draft. I think they drafted exceptionally well this year. You know when they didn't draft exceptionally well? The prior 2 years. And when you do a stars and scrubs roster where the only good signings that you seem to make are the re-signings of your own guys, and you never seem to make a good signing in free agency, you always just overpay those guys and they come in washed up, then you need to lean on the guys who are 2, 3, 4 years into their career. And the 49ers can't do that because they don't have but maybe 1 or 2 per class from the past 3 seasons. And so they're leaning on a bunch of rookies. They got a starting free safety. They got a starting offensive lineman. They have a starting X-receiver now. They're going to have to ride Garendo if Jordan Mason can't go, and Christian McCaffrey's a shell of his former self. They're relying on a lot of rookies, and I think they're good rookies. I feel pretty good about the rookies, but that's not a Super Bowl contending team. It's just that is a total question mark. It's a total question mark, and it comes back to years of mismanagement, years of, as you said, overvaluing your own guys, not pivoting before you had to get out. They didn't just not pivot on Debo. They signed him to a new contract in order to get Ayuk and Trent Williams in. He's locked in for next year. The idea that this is the last dance for Debo Samuel, that's gone. They can cut his ass, but he sure as hell isn't getting traded at the end of the year, because who's going to take on Debo Samuel after the entire NFL has decided we're just going to play man-to-man against this guy and he won't get a catch, and he hasn't proven him wrong yet, and we're 8 weeks in. It's a big issue. It's a big issue, and you rely on the quarterback to get you over the hump, and frankly, the reason they have 4 wins is the quarterback at this point.
They also made a couple bad decisions on the margins. I mean, they totally. Deshaun Jameson, they cut him for, Oliver last year, Isaiah Oliver, and wrong call.
Right.
This year, they kept Isaac Yiadom and they cut Samuel Womack. I think that was clearly the wrong call.
To be fair, Yiadom was really good in training camp. I would have kept Womack over Luter, but that was,
keep Womack. I mean, my goodness, that was bad because now he's in Indy and he's cheap and he's a good corner. He's playing well. Yeah. So whatever. I mean, they've made some tough.
Every
tough
team
decisions.
does. Those ones linger though. Those ones feel heavy.
No question. I saw a list of who's actively or actually available, I should say. And it's an interesting list. I mean, there's guys that may have the Niners may have interest in that we haven't mentioned. It's an interesting list. Jonathan Jones, the corner, Zadarius Smith, the defensive end. We kind of mentioned him.
Yeah,
a couple of people are always talking O-line. I kind of think of O-line as an off-season thing, but
Evan if you can find an O-line, that'd be great.
Well, there's Evan Neal, Daniel Brunskill, and Jack Conklin. Those guys are all out there. I don't know. I mean, Evan Neal was supposed to be awesome leaving Bama. He just hasn't. It has not happened for him with the G-men. There's Zach Wilson in Denver. If you want a quarterback to, make Brock nervous or
Kyle ain't playing
test
that game.
him.
He ain't playing.
It's funny though. They aren't playing that game, but I think they should because
I don't
Joe
disagree.
Montana was better when Steve Young was standing right behind him, and Steve Young was better when Joe Montana was literally hovering over the franchise. And were they comfortable with one another? No. Did Joe like Steve? No. Did he want him there? No. Did Steve like
Yeah.
Joe? Well, Steve's a pretty nice guy. He admired Joe, but he didn't want him there. And
No.
they didn't want each other there. But guess
But
what?
Larry,
They won championships.
The media landscape is so different these days.
It is.
It was toxic then, but that toxicity was not something that was consistently harped on back in that era. I got books on it. Like, you lived it. I'm going to defer to you here, but like, everyone knew it, but it could be kept pretty well under wraps because you didn't have Steve Young tweeting or going on the. Now everyone has a megaphone, and I think
Dieter,
teams
let's
are
look
really
at it this
afraid
way. Let's look at it this way. Let's stop looking at it as the chemistry in the room and just say, you know what, you don't like it. Who cares? You're a player. You take it. And and here's the other thing on that. Let's look at roster building. If the 49ers, if Brock Purdy got hurt last year and Sam Darnold came in and played the way he's playing right now, with the Vikings,
as one could argue is happening currently with the Vikings with JJ McCarthy.
Right. So JJ got hurt. Darnold's coming in. Darnold's playing well. Now Darnold's probably the guy. Now, who knows? I don't know. I don't know if McCarthy will get traded.
It's going to be a tough decision given what we've seen. Yeah.
But my point is just this. Either you could have Darnold and trade him for a lot, or you could have Purdy and trade him for a lot. My whole thing is, if you really want to build a roster that competes and you really want to win a championship, the most volatile pieces on the chessboard in the NFL today is the quarterback.
Yeah.
And since Shanahan feels like he's got a system that works and he can make any number of quarterbacks good, he's never said that, but I kind of get the feeling that he definitely feels that way. Then you should be after every single one of these failed quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. Bring on Anthony Richardson. Bring on Zach Wilson. Give me a look at Mac Jones. I want to reclaim all these guys because guess what? If Sam Darnold played 3 games and played well, the Niners probably could have traded him and gotten a ton. So how about this? How about you get a good backup quarterback like a Mac Jones or I'm not saying Justin Fields because I think he seriously sucks, but Zach Wilson, Anthony Richardson's got a lot of physical ability and have them on your bench, pay a little extra. And when those guys, when Brock gets hurt, you put that guy in for 3 games, and at the end of the year, when that guy goes 2-1 and looks really good, you trade him for a first, a second, and a fourth, and you build fast. So I like the Zach Wilson idea, or I like Shanahan and Lynch targeting the young quarterback with upside. Partly it could be for their purposes of icing Brock and getting him at their price. But more importantly, just as far as a roster building mechanism, the best thing that you could do for your team is to discover a starting caliber quarterback that nobody seems to know exactly who's going to be good and who's not going to be good until after they play. So if you actually have some guy, and obviously the Niners saw Purdy, somebody in their organization saw it, and if you have an offense like Shanahan's, why wouldn't you go after a high-profile, first-round pick who busted, like a Mac Jones, like a Zach Wilson? Let him play 3 or 4 games, let him play a year, and then hawk them for a number 1 or a 1 and a 2 if they play really, really well. And now suddenly, if the 49ers at this juncture could add day 1 or day 2 picks for a quarterback that they don't need, that they kind of, reclaimed his value, that probably is their best ticket to getting past Baltimore, Kansas City, Green Bay, Detroit, and winning a Super Bowl. Would you agree or disagree?
I agree with the overall premise. I think that the timing on this is you're not bringing that guy in midseason. I'm totally with you, though, on going all the way in on quarterbacks at all junctures, not caring, how's this going to look? Brock's the quarterback. You're paying Brock at the end of this year. That should say everything. I'll give you a name. We want to just play the extrapolation game. Daniel Jones is getting cut. The Kyle Shanahan Reform School for Quarterbacks and Daniel Jones worked pretty well with Darnold. Darnold got paid. He didn't even play last year. He got paid and went to a situation where he might have played in year one, even if J.J. McCarthy didn't get injured. Now, of course, we're seeing he did, and Darnold is playing well. Not at that MVP level he was showing early, because that was always a little wonky. But Sam Darnold, no one's going like, oh, they got Darnold, they're going to lose today. They're winning games. I don't think Daniel Jones is at the same level as Sam Darnold.
Daniel Jones? No.
I'm telling you, right?
What's the downside?
Fast. What's the downside?
He's kind of like Alex Smith in a lot of ways. He's really tall and really fast.
Yeah, and
really bad.
And really bad.
He turns it over, enough for like 7 quarterbacks. I mean, he just turns it over.
I'm of the mindset of, Will Levis is probably not going to be a Kyle guy because I've never seen him make a good throw. So that's a tough one. That's a tough one for me to swallow. There's not a lot of, failing quarterbacks now. Most teams lock in, much like Daniel Jones, most teams lock in mediocrity, right? They're not willing to take the risk. And so you'll end up with a Baker Mayfield who floats around and finds a spot, or a Geno. Like, these are good.
Another guy.
This is a good example of, hey, what's the worst case scenario for the 49ers? I don't see those guys coming through because Anthony Richardson, they're not cutting him at the end of this year. They're probably going to play him later on this season. I think they just had to make a show out of him quitting on 3rd and goal and be like, yeah, we can't do that. We need to make an example of you here for a week or two. And then we actually have to play football with you because you're our, number 5 overall pick, number 3 overall pick, something like that. Like, we're not going to ride Joe Flacco for the rest of this year. Like, you're the franchise guy. We got to find out if you're a franchise player or not. So honestly, the one guy who fits the bill of highly drafted dude that a team is going to move on from going into this offseason is Daniel Jones. And I don't think Kyle's going to turn him into something. I don't think he's going to turn him into the next great quarterback that, hey, don't even sign Brock because Daniel Jones is available.
Yeah, right.
But like, it would be good for Daniel Jones to be Brock's backup next year. And frankly, compared to, Brandon Allen or Josh Dobbs, if you had Daniel Jones in a training camp and then, 7-8 weeks in, Brock, sprains his knee and is out for 3 weeks, and you said, okay, our backup's Daniel Jones, like, it could be better. It could be a hell of a ton worse. At least this guy started in the NFL and he's got a little wiggle to him. And who knows, maybe Kyle did some magic with him on the side. Maybe, Brian Greasy's got the magic touch. It worked for Darnold. Maybe it can work for Jones. I love this idea, but you can't do it mid-season because now you're trading for the contract. What you do is you get these guys when they're dirt cheap. You get them when they're at their rock bottom, and you say, we're going to build you up. This is the Warriors way of doing business. Oh, you want to come sign for the minimum? Don't worry. We'll build you up, and then you'll go sign a big contract somewhere else. DeMarcus Cousins didn't really work out for him, but that's, neither here nor there. They wanted it. That was the plan. And I think that could be a really good situation for a player like Jones who really fits the bill here, and maybe Richardson a year or two. So I'm with you.
Kawachipto says, I don't disagree with the premise. Just Wilson will never be that guy. Possibly. But, Wilson's got a great arm, and he's pretty mobile. And I think if you put him in this system and he matured a little bit, he might be pretty good.
But like Sean Payton's trying to do this right now. Like Sean Payton,
he's not playing. He's playing Bo Nix.
I know, and I understand why, because Bo Nix has actually been pretty good as of late. But the whole idea is that you have him on the bench, and just by being on the team now, somehow he has value in the market. And Zach Wilson made the call to go do that with Sean Payton. Like, there's a lot of head coaches in this league who apparently have a reputation with quarterbacks. It's not just Kyle Shanahan. So Wilson's made that call. It might work out for him. It might not. We'll see. I mean, again, he's an injury away from playing as opposed to a guy disqualifying himself as the number 1, and then Zach Wilson steps in. But I like that model. I like that idea of taking a recent young failure and giving him a second shot, even if that second shot doesn't actually come with you, but merely by being around and being a model citizen and learning the 49ers system, which of course is everywhere in modern NFL. Hey, now you have an opportunity to go and get, 1B opportunities for a team that's on the up, exactly like Sam Darnold just did. repeat that process. It was working well for everybody.
It cracks me up because the one guy who just, it's just like universal, like, let's rank quarterbacks. And then all of a sudden, be like CJ Stroud. Oh yeah. For sure. He's way, way better than Purdy. Way, way better. He went 11 of 30 tonight. He completed 37% of his passes for 191 yards and no touchdowns. And the 6-2 Texans got beat by the 2-6 Jets. And Stroud was sacked 8 times. Had a 59.2 quarterback rating and a 27.7 QBR.
I could have told you that was going to happen. Maybe not the Stroud thing, but there was.
We're going to call up now and be like, Stroud's not it. Stroud's not it. No. He had a bad game. Stroud's not him. He's not Purdy.
Let me just say this. There's something to note. Las Vegas, it's not really Vegas anymore. It's some algorithm in, a data center in Utah. The Jets were favored. And if you didn't know anything, if you just watch football and you don't think about this stuff and you're not, paying attention, you don't have CBS in your local broadcasting market and you're not catching them, you don't ever, Sunday Ticker or whatever. I woke up this morning, I looked at the line and I went, that can't be right. Is somebody injured? Is Stroud out? Who's out? And I look and I go, okay, yeah, I mean, obviously, Nico Collins is out and Stephon Diggs is out, but I'm like, those guys are maybe that's like 2 points. It shouldn't be to where the Jets are favored. So that thing stunk to high heaven. And then you see the public was entirely on the Texans. And I'm like, well, you just have to bet the Jets now because clearly something's happening here that Vegas was on top of. And the general public, myself included, was not. And this is it. Got sacked 8 times.
Vegas aside, people will bang on Brock Purdy if he has one bad game.
Yeah.
This is in the last 3 weeks. CJ Stroud completed 47.6% of his passes at Lambeau when he went 10 for 21 for 86 yards. And then tonight, 11 of 30 against the Jets for a completion percentage of 36.7%. And he was sacked 12 times in those 2 games, 8 tonight.
But I mean,
2 games, 2 out of the last 3 games, he's had a QB rating under 60. And yet nobody's going to come out and say, CJ Stroud's not good. No, it's like CJ Stroud is a great young quarterback who had a bad game. But
now
when Brock Purdy has a bad game, it's like, I don't know if he's him. I don't think he's the guy. Suddenly, it's like every game that Brock plays poorly is a referendum on his whole fucking career.
Yeah,
CJ
showed up to a ready-made
games,
situation.
and it's like, doesn't matter.
There is a difference. It's expectations versus reality. It's the thing that I always come back to. And the expectations when Brock Purdy comes in and is competent immediately is, he got handed a ready-made situation, and it's Kyle Shanahan. Anyone could be good there. And meanwhile, the Texans draft Stroud number 2, and they immediately make the playoffs, and it's like, it must be all him. It couldn't
when the Niners took Purdy out in the NFC Championship game against the Eagles. It was like their entire offense disappeared.
I'm with you. Look at how they played before Brock Purdy showed up. They were 3-3. Christian McCaffrey shows up. They go on a nice little run with Jimmy Garoppolo as the quarterback, basically dumping it off to McCaffrey every down. Like the idea that it was just some, anyone can do this thing is laughable because clearly not everyone could do this. He is a very good quarterback. Now,
my whole point is just that, hey, when you play the best defenses and on their schedule, their best defenses are probably the Jets and the Packers and the Bears. And against those teams, the guy's got 15 interceptions in 3 games.
Yeah.
15 sacks, I should say. 15, not 15 interceptions.
That'd be incredible.
15, that'd be incredible. 15 sacks against those 3
I would have known
really good defenses. That's a lot.
I'm with you. I wish I had been watching because I wish I had pulled up the All-22 on old Coolidge Stroud there because I'm very interested to see what defenses are doing schematically to challenge him because clearly just playing too high was not it last year because they were just going up the seams with 4 wide and attacking the conflict between in quarters coverage, and they were just
nothing tonight, man. They had a running back throw a pass to Stroud on 3rd and goal I mean, that's what you're
Well,
busting out on
apparently,
third
I
and
think
goal
Mixon
is
was the best player, so maybe it was the best idea to
the
have Mixon throwing it.
Mixon throw to Stroud. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just saying that, okay, fine. You wanna critique Brock Purdy super harshly every week. That's fine, but at least have the fairness, because there's tons of people that would be like, oh, well, he's not Stroud. Okay, but here now today, are you going to say, well, what are you going to say? You're going to say that the Jets are the awesomest defense of all time, or C.J. Stroud had a bad night, or I mean, it's like the great quarterbacks, and I'm not saying Stroud's not great. Great quarterbacks have bad days. Okay.
Yeah.
Joe Montana had bad days. Steve Young, I saw it. I was there. Steve Young had like 5 turnovers in his first playoff game against Washington, and they still won. They still found a way to win. I mean, that's how amazing it was.
Well, he got handed a ready-made situation, Larry.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I would venture to say that Steve in the modern media landscape would get a lot of the same shit that Brock gets.
I mean, he had the most expectations of all time. I mean,
I know
the players, Brock didn't walk into a situation. He walked into a situation where a lot of the Cancun crew liked Jimmy as like their drinking buddy, party buddy, but they weren't sold on him the way that the Niners were sold. Baja, whatever. They're not sold on him the way they were sold on Joe. I mean, everybody was sold on Joe. He had multiple rings. They were all wearing multiple rings because of Joe. And Steve was trying to break into that. Right. Brock didn't have to do that. Brock, by 3 games in, people were like, Jimmy freaking who?
Right.
Who? Jimmy? Screw Jimmy.
And don't forget the quarterback that started that season.
Trey Lance. That's right. That's right. Yeah. All right. I mentioned to you off the start of the show that the Niner defense is 30th in points allowed in the fourth quarter under Sorensen. They were first last year under Wilkes. I forgot to follow up with the obvious, topic question, which is, Dieter, was it a mistake to dump Steve Wilkes for Sorensen? Was Steve Wilkes, some kind of sacrificial lamb? Did the Niners downgrade by going from Wilkes to Sorensen? Do they upgrade? Or do you consider it a lateral move?
I have no idea what Nick Sorensen is yet. And I maintain this week in, week out. I'm looking for an answer. Okay. And the longer it goes on, the more I'm leaning towards he's not good at his gig. Now, again, the deficiencies in personnel are pretty significant, more significant than last year, to be sure. Steve Wilkes was a bad defensive coordinator. Okay, I got a couple of points on this. One, he's playing in 2023. He was playing. Pardon me, I get choked up about this, Larry. He was playing a defense.
Emotional. It's very emotional.
God damn it, he was playing Tampa too, Larry. He was playing a defense that was best used in 2003. Okay, he's using Fred Warner as a free safety often with his defense. Unacceptable. 2, Steve Wilkes had a stick up his ass so high about getting screwed over, and I'm not saying he didn't, over 2 head coaching jobs in Carolina and Arizona. And he was out there trying to prove that he could be a head coach again and again and again. And ultimately, his ego kept getting in the way of pragmatism. Now, Kyle has the same issue at times, but at least Kyle has the track record and isn't trying to get a different gig. He's not trying to prove anything to anyone other than maybe his dad. I'm not sure what's going on there, but ultimately Steve Wilkes is out here constantly trying to promote the resume over, hey.
Uh-oh. And like that, Dieter disappeared. Not sure what happened there with Dieter. Oh, there we go. We got him back. You're back. Wait. I'm trying to put him in there, but looks like it's not working. There we go.
Controls my internet, and obviously there's an issue there. So regardless, Steve Wilkes, the stick up his ass thing was a real issue. The third part, and this is something I heard in the moment, and this is something I heard a lot after the fact, because boy, God, did they want to tell me, because I had kind of made a stink out of it early. People wanted to tell me all their stories about Steve Wilkes. I'll keep 90% of that confidential, but Kyle was spending a lot of time in defensive meetings last year to make sure that they were running competent defenses. Kyle was having to run these. He didn't want to do that. The whole point of a defensive coordinator for Kyle Shanahan is he can leave them alone, that he can trust them. When he had to publicly demand to Steve Wilks to come and be on the field, it was done for him. Because not only was Kyle in the meetings because he didn't trust the game plans that were being put out there, he thought they were simplistic, and he thought that they were not correctly derived for the personnel the team had. And then, to have that weird back and forth where Steve's like, I'm not going to do it. I don't need to do it. And Kyle's like, I'm the head coach of the team. You absolutely do need to do this. And it gets drawn out here. It was a real issue. I don't know if Sorensen's good or not. I think that they wanted somebody who at least the defensive personnel knew and liked. I do think that he's an organized person. I do think that he runs a good practice. Everything I've heard is that you're not getting anything past him. He sees stuff. He has everyone ready and able to do it. I question his in-game coaching to this point. And I do think that there is the elephant in the room here, which is I don't know what Brandon Staley is doing, but Brandon Staley was overtly brought in to be the, as I've called him, the shadow defensive coordinator. And it's rather convenient that Sorensen has to wear the brunt of all of the bad stuff that is happening with this defense. He's the coordinator. Such is the responsibility. This is why you get paid more now. But if they were to do something really interesting and creative, and I saw this happening in training camp, there'd be a lot of credit going to Brandon Staley. Oh, Brandon Staley's really interesting. He comes up with these great concepts. He has us so ready. Brandon Staley was getting a lot of credit for shit in the preseason when stuff was looking okay. It was looking like stuff was happening. And as soon as stuff starts going wrong, oh, it's Sorensen, because, well, Staley had the track record of being a good defensive coordinator before, and Sorensen's first go-around on this. I'm going to give the guy the benefit of the doubt, but let me put it to you this way. Steve Wilks didn't get fired as a sacrificial lamb. Steve Wilks would have been fired at any point that was the end of the season for the 49ers. If they didn't make the playoffs, they would have fired him. If they did make the playoffs, they would have fired him. And frankly, the game plan of having Logan Ryan be the nickel in the Super Bowl was laughable, to the point where Logan Ryan before the Super Bowl on the side told me it was laughable. He's like, what are
here's a rule. Here's a rule of thumb. If a guy is on a cruise and you're thinking about signing him, hang up the phone.
Disney cruise.
I don't care what cruise you're on. If you're on a cruise ship, I don't want you around my football team. Because you have really shut it down. You're not in the right mentality. Being on a cruise and that mentality is not conducive to big time football. I'm convinced of that.
Steve Wilks leaned on him because Steve Wilks thought that so many people
he couldn't tackle.
Not only couldn't tackle, but couldn't possibly understand what he was teaching them. Now I'm giving away more than the 10% I promised. But he had open contempt for people on the team, not just players, but coaches, thinking that he was so much smarter than them. They just didn't like Steve Wilks at all. That's why he got fired.
Well, okay, couple things. One, go if you think it's a Niner issue, go Wikipedia Steve Wilks and just do some basic accounting of his career. And what you're going to find is he's been coaching for 25 years. What you're also going to find is he's done it in like 23 stops.
Yep.
He's like literally 23 stops in 25 years. So the guy moves. He's nomadic. That's him. That has nothing to do with the Niners. He was established
point, you're
as
the asshole.
Well, I'm not saying he's an asshole. I liked him, but
he was.
You are a nomad, whether you ever coach for the Niners or not. That's what your resume says you are. You're a nomad. A couple things. One, and I've said this a few times. I don't want to bore everybody with the same take, but it was pretty clear to me that the front and the coverage behind it didn't match up throughout good portions of the second half of the year. The Cincinnati game was a ridiculous embarrassment where they were speeding up Burrow up front, but then they were playing soft coverage behind, and then you're just speeding Burrow into these really easy completions, and that's what happened. And they just got destroyed. There was no slowing down the Bengals at all.
Yeah.
But to me, I think of football defense is it's not genius. I mean, it was when Buddy Ryan introduced the 46 defense, but there's not a lot of innovation in defense. Defense is about athletes who can close it down, and it's about accountability and effort. So if you have athletes and you get them to play with accountability and be accountable and play with high energy and effort, that's the job. And when I saw Givens and Chase Young Cadillacing it in the NFC title game, I'm firing Wilkes right there.
Yeah.
If you can't get your guys to play hard in the NFC Championship game, I'm going to go get somebody who can.
Yeah.
So it's as simple as that. You can't have guys dogging it. And he came out. I brought that up to Shanahan, right? I'm like, Kyle, is this your culture? He's like, no, it's not our culture. But I also don't think it was widespread. I think it was just a few plays that you guys, saw. I'm like, okay, fair enough. And the next day when Wilkes talked to us, he walked into the room and he's like literally staring right at me talking.
Yeah.
I'm in and I didn't have a front and center seat. I was far to the left. He walked into the room and was like, literally started looking right at me and just started talking. He's talking for like the first 2 minutes or 3 minutes of the press conference, looking all the way to the left corner of the room where I'm sitting. Mm-hmm. So it's like either he was pissed that I brought up that his guys were Cadillacing, or he liked it and now he held me up to a higher level of respect because he was literally addressing me. I really felt like it. Even my son was like, Dad, were you in the corner over there? I'm like, yeah, I was in the corner of the room today. And he stared right at me the whole time when he was talking. But I had a good relationship with Steve. I mean, literally, I asked him tough questions. He gave me good, thought-provoking answers. He knew that I wasn't a stooge. I knew that he's not a stooge. And we got along really, really good. But I never had a chance to ask him,
right?
Did I piss you off when I called out your guys? Because in a way, I kind of felt like, why is he pissed at me? He shouldn't be pissed at me because these guys are going to play with their hair on fire in the Super Bowl. Guess what happened? They played with their hair on fire in the Super Bowl. The Niner defensive effort in the Super Bowl was worlds better than the Niner defensive effort against Green Bay or Detroit. Worlds better. And they had a chance to win. They fired hugely in that game. And then the next week, Dieter, when the mic'd up copy came out, right? What's on the mic'd up copy? A sideline exchange between Chase Young and George Kittle, where Kittle goes up to him, grabs his shoulder pads and says, hey, there's no practice on Tuesday. There's no meetings. There's no nothing. Mm-hmm. Everything you got, I need it tonight. I need you to play with your hair on fire. I need you to bring it all night long. Mm-hmm. And Chase Young looks at George Kittle, serious as a heart attack, puts his hand on his chest and says, I won't let you down. And then went out there and played his ass off.
He did.
Played super hard. Played like the Chase Young that we saw at the beginning of his career with Washington. I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm just saying I called him out. I called him out, and he responded. Yeah. He responded. So I don't know if Wilkes was mad or happy with me. He should be happy because his guy, I got his guy to play.
He wasn't.
But I don't think he was. And I don't think that's why he's out. I really don't. I think he would have been out, as you said, no matter what. But his front and his coverage didn't match, and his guys didn't play hard for him, and that means he had to go.
Do you think Steve
and maybe that's too harsh, but that's
no. I think it's 100% right, and it's ridiculous we're relitigating this. But do you think Steve Wilkes was looking at you in that press conference because he was, happy that you brought it up, or because his boss came to him and said, what the fuck are we doing here? You need to get your guys to play hard. I can't do it for you. Because I know that second conversation happened.
Everyone's worst nightmares. Larry's blowing his own horn. I don't blow my own horn a lot. Maybe I'm blowing my own horn a little bit on this one. But it's not even me blowing my own horn. I'm just recapping. I'm just an honest person. I'm honest and I'm being honest. If I thought I stepped in shit, I'd be like, hey, you know what? I stepped in shit. If I thought I asked a stupid question, I would say I asked a stupid question. I'm a Niner. I'm serious, right? I don't show up for kicks. I'm I'm not showing up to make friends. I'm not showing up to buddy up to a player or to have Shanahan like me or Lynch
You'll be
love
here longer
me.
than all of them.
I'm not, that's not my agenda. My agenda is I want to see the team win. I want to be as passionate about the team winning as the players on the team, as the coaches, as the owner, as the fans. I want to have that passion. So I watch it, but I want to win, man. And all my questions are all about in the name of helping the 49ers win.
Okay. I mean, yeah.
I know that sounds kind of like I'm like the super fan, but I am a super fan. I grew up in the Sunset District. My dad was a Niner fan. I'm a lifelong Niner fan. I'm not going to sit here and pretend, even though I scouted professionally and I feel like I know a little bit about what I'm watching, but I'm not going to pretend that I don't have an emotional interest or some kind of vested interest. I'm emotionally invested in this. Yes, I am.
Yeah.
And financially, by the way, because the radio station and my YouTube channel do better when the 49ers go to the playoffs in the Super Bowl than when they don't. So I am financially and emotionally invested. I try to be professional, but I'm not going to pretend I'm not invested.
Well, again, coming back to the Wilks thing, because I'm not invested.
I know.
It is what it is. I'm just going to provide a critical eye. Now, I'm with you. Life is a lot easier when they win. I'm certainly not rooting for them to lose. It is what it is. But the Wilks thing was entirely, man, you got me in trouble with my boss.
You think so?
Totally. I know so. How about that? I know so. Because it was a whole... You know what? You're allowed to actually toot your own horn, tug your own hog, whatever it is they want to call it. Because it was a shit show. It was a shit show about that Chase Young thing in the building. A shit show.
Lynch had a presser the next day.
Correct. It was.
They didn't even. Show. And you know what? I waited. I didn't. Dieter, I'm driving down there that day, and I'm sitting there driving down the 680, going, "Son of a bitch! I got to ask this question."
Yeah.
And then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to wait till the end. I'll let somebody else ask the question.
No, sir.
I'm going to let somebody else ask the question, man. Because somebody else will ask it. Then I don't have to be the bad guy. And nobody asked it. And I
don't think most people noticed. I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah.
I don't think most people noticed. You noticed, and you had to ask the question. It was a fair question. It was an appropriate question. And it ultimately...
Kev, look at Kev. The only reason you asked the question is because I showed you the clip.
Probably not wrong. Probably not wrong. I deserve
the credit.
I don't know if it was a shit show on Monday or if it was a shit show on the Wednesday after you asked the question, but I can tell you that Kyle, who had been spending a lot of time in the defensive meeting rooms last year against his will because he did not trust what was happening and ultimately knew almost immediately, that Steve Wilks was not the right hire and that this thing was spiraling a little bit, and he was trying to hold it together. That Chase Young hot dog in it was a big deal. And you're right, they played a lot harder in the Super Bowl, but I think Steve Wilks is very much somebody who, I sat with him for 20, 25 minutes ahead of the Super Bowl. The level of contempt.
Where? Was in that little sit down that they had with the whole team?
At the table.
You pulled him aside. That was a great little sit down.
It was. I love those things. And I just sat there and I just kind of I had 30 questions and I would just get one in every now and again. And anything that he felt was anything that he could latch on to that he felt was intellectually inferior, he wasn't there to teach. He was there to scorn someone dare questioning Steve Wilks. That was his attitude. And talking to some people, that seemed to be his attitude towards everybody. So Steve Wilks, Steve was saying that Larry got Steve Wilks fired. Steve Wilks got Steve Wilks fired, and it happened long before that. Now, that was probably one of the last straws, but they were scraping the bottom of the barrel there. Kyle, early on.
You know who got him fired? Kev.
He deserves the credit.
Steve Wilks fired.
By the way, where's Steve Wilks working this season?
I don't think he is.
Correct.
But in fairness to Steve, he is proven. The one thing he has proven is that he can get a job. He has been everywhere.
Got a great
I mean,
track
go look at
record.
go Wikipedia him. He's been everywhere.
I remember
College,
when he was at Missouri.
pros,
Now, again, listen,
head
we
coach,
talked
coordinator.
about Missouri on Missouri Crime earlier in the show. I came in with a deep skepticism of Steve Wilkes because of what he did at Mizzou and the stories that I heard about how he coordinated the defense at Mizzou.
Charlotte. He's working for Charlotte.
He got there.
Steve's got a property in the North Carolina mountains. I remember asking him, I said, Steve, where are you going to be for the bye week? He's, I'm going to be sitting on my front stoop having a cigar. He goes, I'm going to smoke a cigar on my front stoop and just chill out.
Pretty sweet. I'm gonna give him that. And you know what? I need to say something nice about Steve Wilkes. I think he actually had a really good eye for identifying and fostering defensive back talent.
No, he worked with those guys every day in practice. He developed Demo Lenore. He did a really nice job developing some of those young DBs.
He did.
No question.
And I think that if someone wanted to hire him as a strictly defensive back coach, he would do a good job there. But when you put Steve Wilkes in power, Steve Wilkes gets a very large head very fast, and you can't tell him anything. And frankly, his expertise sort of stops at defensive backs.
He was cooked after the Addison touchdown with the zero coverage.
He stopped taking risks after
the first half in Minnesota. I mean Kyle literally went to the press conference the next time we talked to him. He's like, "Yeah, Steve screwed that up." I mean, you just don't do that. I've never seen Kyle say that about anybody. I mean, look at it this way: has he said that Schneider has screwed up on special teams yet? No. And how many times have the Niners special teams screwed up? Well, a ton. Again, so it's like he covers his guys typically, but he didn't cover Steve.
And this is where I land on Sorensen. We got to come back to, we all agree that this is a very flawed roster. And when you do stars and scrubs, you're left with a lot of guys who are barely NFL players, if we're being honest, to fill special teams roles. I don't know if schematically Schneider is a bad special teams coordinator. He's certainly not a creative one.
He's got a rep across the league as being a very good special teams coordinator.
Right. And I think that they just have bad personnel. And I think that the same could probably apply, by the way, to Kyle Shanahan on offense this year. They don't have guys who can beat man-to-man. And without Christian McCaffrey, they don't have an answer. And they built the entire offense around Christian McCaffrey because they thought he'd be in for week one.
Here, but here's the difference. The Niners have had injuries on offense, injuries on defense.
Yeah.
They're still top 10 in both.
Yeah.
They're 30th and 31st or whatever, 29th or whatever it is in special teams DVOA. Yeah. They're getting it. Kyle's getting it done despite the injuries, and the defense to a degree again, is getting it done with despite the injuries. The special teams is not getting it done.
I agree. I'm not implying in any way that they'd be fantastic if they just had this thing, because George Odom, a guy they paid $5 million to and benched as a defensive player this year, hasn't been playing well either. So it is on Schneider to some degree. I'm not implying that he's blameless here. But ultimately, when you're constantly having to reformulate your coverage teams because the fucking defense and the offense need the guy who was fourth string last week to be a first string this week because of injuries, it's a little tough. And I'm gonna give the guy some deference because I think that, Richard Hightower was terrible at this. Well, the Bears actually have pretty good special teams. Richard Hightower might have actually been a decent coordinator, but he had shitty guys. Kyle doesn't prioritize these things because Kyle has built rosters year in and year out to be top heavy. So this is what you get when you are constantly, you don't have a Farhan Zaidi constantly making sure the 24th man on the roster is really good. It's not to say that that's a winning formula, but Farhan Zaidi would have great special teams and really shitty offenses and defenses if he was an NFL GM. The flip is true for John Lynch. He has great top tier talent, and the bottom of the roster is usually leaving you wanting something. And those are the guys who play special teams.
Farhan would be a disaster. I mean, Paul DePodesta is with the Browns.
They're
Why do you think
great.
the Browns got
they're doing fantastic.
Deshaun Watson in that terrible contract? That's Paul DePodesta.
There's an ownership issue there, I should note.
Couple more before we jet. The Niner offense has had 4 offensive touchdowns wiped away due to Niner penalties.
Yeah.
So, that's cost the Niners, I should say, nearly 14 what they call expected points, by far the most in the NFL. When I read you that stat, what comes to mind when you hear that stat?
A team that just generally didn't show up ready to play this year. a team that didn't practice at all together as a first team in the preseason. You think about Brandon Ayuk, he signs after cutdown day. Trent Williams, who probably wasn't going to practice much to begin with, signs after cutdown day. You have so many injuries. Christian McCaffrey isn't there the entire time, not even there yet. And a team that just doesn't have a lot of reps, and a team that was a little high on its own supply and came into the season just a little lax, thinking, hey, we'll figure it out. We're so much better than these guys. And then getting punched in the mouth. And now it's all on these, they're having a tough time moving the ball. And so now it's all on these individual play. Okay, this is going to be our huge play and it has to win. And guys aren't ready for it because they just haven't gotten the reps, or, they're a little slower than they used to be, or they're a little high on their own supply. It's a bad combination having this Super Bowl hangover. It can come in many different forms, but that screams to me Super Bowl hangover and a team that's not totally locked in, which I think is what we've all seen over the first 8 games. And it's gotten a little better, but clearly it's not all the way there. They're a very penalized team. And they're also a team that when they get penalties, and this is a Kyle thing, he constantly brings up the numbers on what happens if you to a drive when a team takes a sack, or what happens when you commit a penalty. There's a defeatist attitude post penalty because, the perfect string of plays now got messed up and we have to go off script. And Kyle doesn't like that. And the team picks up that energy and doesn't respond very well. And I don't see a lot of resilience when we talk about the ideologue that is Kyle Shanahan in calling plays post adversity. And I think that seeps in. But, some of these holds too have been kind of shitty. I mean, they've been kind of shitty calls, to be fair.
There's some bad calls, but what really bugs me is that opposing offenses against the Niner defense, when they're backed up in a tough situation where it should be advantage defense pre-snap, they'll still make plays and get first downs and continue drives. But Kyle Shanahan, when he gets to, a penalty situation, and now he'll it's like the giveaway halfback dive on third down before the 50-yard Anders Carlson field goal attempt. It's like, well, you're setting this up for an Anders Carlson 50-yard field goal. Did you not look at the stats and see that he's 4 of 8 from 50 plus yards? Right. Why are you setting this up for your third kicker to kick a kick that he's proven that he can only make half the time, when you have all these weapons that you're paying all this money to, and you go halfback, not draw, halfback dive? Right. I mean, what is this? I mean, it's like the most Jerry Falwell, the offensive coordinator. I mean, can we be more conservative? Sometimes he gets a tad too conservative, and I thought that was an example.
No doubt.
All right, let's hit a couple more before we get out of here. The Niners have 7 players set to return from injury. We named them before: Jennings, McCaffrey, Greenlaw, Moody, Hufanga, Givens, and Yetur Gross-Matos.
Yeah. Make
a prediction. Which of those 7 guys is going to have the biggest impact? And the injuries, and what it's, who's got what and who's coming back and who might not make it back. If you're betting on which of those 7 guys is going to have the biggest impact in the second half of the year, who are you going to bet on?
I'd bet on Jennings to have the most impact. Now, I will say this. This hip injury worries the shit out of me. There's something
he hasn't even been at the facility.
There's something way off here. And there's a funkiness that I'm choosing to ignore right now because I'm not sure he's playing against Tampa Bay. And I don't know when he's playing football again. But if everything is hunky-dory like Kyle says it is.
It's not a hip pointer. He said that.
We'll find out. But if we're going to just give Kyle the benefit of the doubt on this one, which he has not earned in any way, shape, or form when it comes to reporting injuries. But if we're going to do that, then I think it's Jennings, because he slides into that X spot. And we saw earlier this season how Brock will force him the ball. And that more often than not works out. And it moves the ball down the field. He's a really, really good receiver. I only don't say McCaffrey because I am petrified of that injury. Absolutely petrified. It is so reminiscent of the Kevin Durant playoffs in 2019 that I feel bad even acknowledging it. But I saw that Achilles explode in real time. I saw the thing go right up his leg. And you don't stay out 8 weeks for a calf strain, and you don't fly to Germany unless that thing is going to go the second you step on a football field, and you're just biding your time because you're just rolling the dice every time you take a snap, and you can crap out very easily. I'm extremely nervous about that for Christian McCaffrey's sake, and I'm sure he's extremely nervous about it too. There's something fundamentally fucked about that situation, so I can't bet on it.
The Niners are the ones I'm worried about. I mean, there's a very good chance that Christian McCaffrey is going to have a recurrence of this injury in November or December or January, and then he's going to be out all of next year like Ayuk.
Yeah.
So there's a very good chance that you could be without Debo, CMC, and Ayuk. Now we'll see. I don't know what they're going to do with Debo, but will they keep him? Will they trade him? Will they whatever?
Well,
but I mean, there's a chance.
No one's buying Debo at the end of this season. I'll tell you.
There's a chance. No Ayuk, no CMC. So unless you have some game plan on some other awesome weapon that you're going to have, you're not going to be very good next year if CMC blows out an Achilles. So it's like the more you wait on this thing, the more you're screwing yourself over next year. So it's like, let's get this guy out there and let's get this show on the road, and let's either, let's S or get off the pot. Let's make this happen, or let's not. Let's move on, or let's test this thing and either pop this pimple or he plays with it and he's fine. But I mean, at some point you got to get him out there and you got to see. But if it does rupture, he's gone next year too.
And his career is over as we know it. I mean,
his career could be over too. I mean, that's also.
There's no way you come back as a running back with his mileage.
What if he? I mean, what's likely to happen here, since he's got Achilles tendonitis in both? He's not going to rupture both. He's going to rupture one, and then guess what he's going to have? He's going to have a ruptured Achilles and another Achilles that's compromised. So I mean, he's
compensating with.
There's literally no good avenue other than it just miraculously goes away. I mean, if you look at his injury the way it should lay out, his career is probably done. I mean, I hate to say that, and I don't want to. I'm not trying to predict it.
No.
I say it with no glee. I say it with tons of remorse. I think Christian's a hell of a guy. It's a great family. I got nothing but respect for him.
He's a borderline Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I mean, he's a terrific guy, terrific player. I hope and pray for the best for him. But if you said to me, do you want to buy? I mean, I have him on my fantasy team. I'm hoping he comes back.
How you doing?
We're 7-0.
That's unbelievable.
Somehow we're 7-0. We're lucky. And we're how about this? We're 7-0. Kevin and I have this team. We had McCaffrey with the first pick. We obviously haven't played him all year. He's never played. We're 7-0, and I think we're like 5th in the league in scoring. I mean, we are living right, man. We've won like 3 games by like a total of like 4 points. I would go with Greenlaw and Moody as the guys who are going to return and make an impact, just because Greenlaw is the truth. Moody's going to get healthy. I think Moody's having a great year. I think Greenlaw is going to add a lot. I think those two guys are going to be huge. The Jennings thing worries the hell out of me. Is it a dislocated? Is it a dislocated hip? I mean, he wasn't at the facility. Generally, guys are on the side running. He wasn't running on the side. He wasn't there. If he's there, he's inside somewhere. And then I got to say, why is he not on the field? So I got to think the Jennings thing. I don't know about that one. And the CMC, I don't know. The groin strain for Givens, I don't know. The broken wrist for Hafanga, I got to think that he's probably not coming back. If I have to go with another guy, I'd probably go Gross Matos, but I'll go with Greenlaw and Moody.
Fair enough.
What's the key in your mind to the Niners' second half success?
Purdy playing like an MVP. It's really not that different than what I said going into the Dallas game. And frankly, his change from first half to second half was exactly what was necessary. First half of that game, I don't know what he was doing, but he wasn't playing good quarterback. And in the second half of the game, he was money. He was absolutely money. And he covered up a lot of the 49ers deficiencies. He was really good in that third quarter in particular. That has to be the standard moving forward. You need Brock Purdy to elevate his game. We need to be having a conversation on this channel going into week 18. Does Brock Purdy deserve MVP votes? Not saying he should win it. Not saying he should get, be in that conversation the way he was last year. But can he get a vote? Can he get a vote? Because if you can reasonably give Brock Purdy an MVP vote at the end of this season as the quarterback of this team, the Niners are going to be, as you said, living right. And if you can't in good conscience do that, there's not enough. There's not enough insulation around him to where you can think that these 49ers, maybe they make it, but they're making it as, a 9 or 8 win team in the NFC West because they had the right wins. And they're going in and, yeah, they have a home game and they're probably getting stomped in the first round. Like, it's really about a $60 million quarterback next year playing like a $60 million quarterback. There's a lot of other things, of course, but it's a head coach in a quarterback league. I need the quarterback to play better. They're 4-4. That seems about right with the way Brock Purdy's played so far.
I don't know if you heard my Niners nightly stat from the other night, but it was pretty amazing, so I'll just repeat it for you. Purdy this year, Dieter, when he personally doesn't fumble or throw an interception, when he doesn't turn it over this year, they're 3-0.
Yeah.
When Purdy has not himself led to an interception or a fumble in his career with the Niners, they are 15-0.
Yeah, wow.
Is that shocking? That seems. I know it's a turnover, but we're just talking about one turnover. And when he has no turnovers, that means he doesn't fumble, he doesn't throw a pick. 15-0. So it's like if there's one thing,
I'm stunned that it's that's incredible.
I would think there would be a aberration in there as well.
Right.
I would say that
that checks out though.
I would love, like, the one thing I would say to Brock, and I've asked him this question a couple times: how do you manage your desire to be aggressive and make plays down the field with your, desire to take care of the football and be careful with it and this and that. And, that is the position. I mean, that is the position. If you have that ratio of, if the windows you can squeeze it in and the windows you can't, if you're aggressive but smart with the ball, that's a great quarterback. Totally. And there's all kinds of quarterbacks in this league where they're kind of their dials get off, like Derek Carr. Derek Carr's got a good arm. Derek Carr's smart. Derek Carr wants to win. He's a good guy, but his clock and his risk reward ratio clock inside of it's all broken. So he throws the ball into the ground on 4th down at the end of the game when you need to just throw it up and take a chance. Right. And then other times he takes sacks when he shouldn't. He just isn't quite, his clock's not right. He holds the ball, takes a sack. His clock, his risk reward, he'll throw a super, super risky pass inside of his own 5-yard line. Yeah. And then he'll be on the 25-yard line down 2 touchdowns and he'll have somebody open down the field and he'll conservatively dump it off. He's
a player who's never had feel. Derek Carr is a guy who's never had feel.
No feel.
And ultimately you need guys to be in the flow state. I'll throw one more at you. Every year, Patrick Mahomes has a stretch where he looks like butthole. Now, maybe that's already happened this year. But every year there's a stretch where he's just sailing it, and he can't seem to get anything right. And Andy Reid always finds a way to pull it in because he's overly risky. He's trying too hard, and he's able to pull him back in and get him back into a feel where it's situational football, the simple stuff. You can say a lot of things about Brock Purdy. A lot of them are hyperbolic, but you can say them. This kid has had a feel for the game since the first snap he took as the number 1 quarterback for this team, Week 13, Miami Dolphins 2022. Like, he has had an incredible feel for the game. And a lot of that I attribute to 4 years at college, playing a lot of football there, being the dude in Arizona before that in high school. He's got a lot of reps. I hate Malcolm Gladwell. I think he's a false prophet, but like the 10,000 hours, right? Like, there is something to that. There are some guys who could never develop a feel, but you're right. Derek Carr has all the traits that you would want. He's got no feel for the game. So he's either overcompensating or being under aggressive. It's always off. It's always off because there's nothing natural about what Derek Carr does. Patrick Mahomes can overdo it at times, but ramping him down is a lot easier than ramping somebody up. It's all about feel. Brock Purdy's got feel coming out of his ears. Very reminiscent of a guy who was all feel for a long time, which was Russell Wilson. Ultimately, time caught up with him. Feel couldn't overcome some of his limitations, but
Don't sleep on him. He's now he got a killer D, and man, to me. I watched Pittsburgh a few times. Fields is terrible. If Russell Wilson
you don't need to tell me, buddy.
If Russell Wilson can do anything, that team is going to be really hard to beat. Because
he's a pros pro. He's a corn dog, but he's a pros pro. I'll just say this: like feel is so much of this, and it's so difficult in this age of quantification and analytics and trying. You want to talk about a guy who's got no flipping feel because he's never played any football? Anthony Richardson can't complete a 7-yard out because he's got no feel. It was
painful to watch Cam Newton try to go at him. Like,
no
Cam
feel.
Newton, you didn't even make it to your 30th birthday in the league. I mean, come on.
I mean, he was here for a good time. 2015, Cam Newton was. He had
one good year. Cam Newton had one good year.
Yeah, and then he was so physically broken.
Though. But come on, man. Come on, Anthony Richardson. You can't say you're tired. You can't say you're tired.
That was unbelievable. But I like quarterbacks that look like they have a feel, look like they can be in the flow state, that aren't overthinking it. As weird as that sounds, you want a quarterback to be smart. You want a quarterback who's out there and understands everything. But you don't want them to be computing all of that while someone's trying to rip their head off. That's how you die. You can't overthink this thing. You have to have a feel for it. And I'm Aaron Rodgers, why has he been asked the last few years? Because he's lost his touch. He's lost his feel. And he's been super conservative.
And he's behind a horrible offensive line. He
was behind a pretty good offensive line in Green Bay his prior 2 years. And I know he was winning MVPs. Oh,
he's making business decisions. He doesn't want to, he's not in it to win it. He's in it to win it if he can.
Right.
It's not like, like Brock Purdy still has this, over my dead body thing. Mahomes too.
Yeah. Totally.
Rodgers is not. That's not. It's not.
And you know what? You think
about his bruised body, and he doesn't. He'll choose. He's going to minimize the bruises.
You think about another quarterback who's having a really good year this year in Baker Mayfield. Like he's a swashbuckler. He's all feel. He doesn't have this great arm. He doesn't have great running, but he's got moxie. He's got moxie coming out of his ears. Now, swashbuckling is one thing, right? That's you can live like that, but you're going to make mistakes, and then you have to have a good defense. A lot of things have to work team-wise to your advantage. If Brock Purdy can have that same kind of attitude and not turn the ball over, how are you supposed to beat a team when you got a quarterback like that? Someone who's willing to put it all on the line, but doesn't put the ball on the line. That's the holy grail right there, man.
One last Niner one. Today, Mike Shanahan, George Seifert, and Mike Holmgren all were Hall of Fame semifinalists.
Yeah.
And there are other coaches that are part of that group as well. Let me see. I have the list here. It is Bill Arnsparger, Tom Coughlin, Chuck Knox, Dan Reeves, Marty Schottenheimer, and Clark Shaughnessy.
Wow.
One of these guys, there'll be one finalist chosen by the Blue Ribbon Coach Committee. Matt Mayoko's on the 50-member Hall of Fame board of selectors. Who was the most deserving of the Hall of Fame between Shanahan, Seifert, and Holmgren?
Wow.
I can give you some of the numbers if you want.
No, I know them loosely. I mean, okay. Holmgren has 1 Super Bowl championship as a head coach. Shanahan has 3 rings, 2 as a head coach, 4 rings.
3. Shanahan has
1 as offensive
Super
coordinator.
Bowl Niners and 2 with Denver, and 178 and 144 in 20 seasons.
Tom Coughlin's got 2. I don't know what he had prior to winning 2 with the Giants.
Holmgren's got 2 Super Bowl appearances as a head coach, one win, one loss. But he also has 2 Super Bowls as an assistant, and he went 174 and 122, so a little bit better record than Shanahan. Seifert's got 2 Super Bowl rings as a head coach.
Yeah.
He was the defensive coordinator starting in 83. He had 8 seasons as the head coach. The Niners went 128 and 98. So they were awesome. They won 77% of his games.
They might have been the team of the decade
7 times. They had 2 Super Bowl titles. He's got 5 rings. I'm going with Seifert. I'm going with Seifert. 5 rings. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to argue with that. I think 4 of those guys should be in. I mean, how do you say Tom Coughlin's not a Hall of Famer? How do you say Mike Shanahan's not a Hall of Famer? How do you say that, Seifert's not a Hall of Famer, Mike Holmgren's not a Hall of Famer? Like,
How about, I was going to say
pretty high bar.
Arnsparger. Arnsparger
Sure.
didn't he have kind of a revolutionary type defense? And he was great college coach too. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, he was
Pro Football Hall of Fame. There is
there's
this
yeah, I mean, he was
level of
incredible at
specificity.
LSU. Schottenheimer. I mean, Marty Schottenheimer. did
Yeah,
nothing
you
but
see, but
win,
I was
win,
I was
win.
a Chiefs fan growing up, and all
They
I
lost
think
the
when I
playoffs.
think Marty Schottenheimer is 7-9. That's
Yeah.
all
But
I think about.
they went to the playoffs a lot. They just didn't get over the top. All right. 3 last ones. Here we go. Warriors are off to a 4-1 start.
Yeah.
The over-under in Vegas is 43.5. I said 38 wins.
Ooh.
Now I'm feeling like it's probably a little on the low side. But the reason I went 38 wins is I think I know Draymond and Steph are old.
Yeah.
But they're a little deeper than I thought. And, Healed and who's the other guy?
Slow-mo.
No, I can't stand slow-mo, but who's the other guy?
Who do you want? New guy?
Who's the shooter that came off the bench, went for 21?
Talking Lindy Waters the third?
Yeah, Lindy Waters. I like the way Buddy Hield and Waters shoot the rock.
Oh, yeah.
And I think they're deep. They're clearly deep. But I'm going to say I'll amend my 38 wins, but I think it's right there at the Vegas over-under. I'm going to say 42, and they're going to go under. Where are you with the Warriors? They're off to a 4-1 start. They just swept New Orleans, who looked terrible in those 2 games.
Yeah. I've always been at 46 with this Warriors team. I think that they're going to be, because of that depth, I think they're going to be a really good regular season team. I think they're going to be a son bitch to play against. And I think that they're showing that. They're going to play fast. They're going to chuck threes. It might not be the most aesthetically pleasing games, but with Draymond Green anchoring that defense, they got some dudes who will put it on the line. If they stay healthy-ish, which they already haven't because Steph is out, this was a team that even last year won far more than half of their games. It only got them the 10 seed. I think that they're probably in that 6-7 range in the Western Conference. The issue is then they get into a playoff series, and it's like you can't run a 12-man rotation. You can't run a 9-man rotation in the playoffs. So I've always viewed them as a very high floor, very low ceiling team that just doesn't have any real potential to compete for a title. But I do think that they're going to be a pretty good regular season team. So I see no reason to back off of 46 now. And if I were to amend my prediction one way or another, it would absolutely have to be more towards 50 than it is towards 40.
The Dodgers won the World Series in 5 games, 4 games to 1. I'm going to share the screen because when we went to Vegas for the Super Bowl, Damon and I went by the Sphere.
Yeah.
And look at the Sphere. Looks like.
Oh, boy.
Right
it's
now.
time for Dodger baseball.
Dodger baseball.
Yeah.
So there you go. There was the
I'm sure
Sphere.
the A's are thrilled about that.
Yeah. Give me your takeaway on the World Series, any aspect of it. You can, it could be anything from, Kershaw's got a gut to
he's on the IL. He deserves it.
The Yankee fans down the line are an embarrassment to the guy, the Dodger fan who blew up his hand trying to light a. Did you see that? That was freaking disgusting. This guy tried to light off a firework. It looked like it was like an M100 with a short wick or something, and the guy blew his hand off. And was like bleeding out. I mean, it looked. I mean, it was like, oh my god,
we had this conversation, Larry. We had this conversation in the summer. I knew a kid growing up who didn't have a hand because he blew it off with fireworks, and I've never touched a firework since.
I almost did this, by the way, as a kid. I picked up a firecracker. Now, granted, it was a firecracker, and it had a short wick, and I went to light it, and I lit it, and I reached back to throw it, and it blew up like in my hand, like right by my. Right by my ear,
open?
And my ear was ringing. But I looked down at my hand because I couldn't feel my hand. I was like, "Oh my god, my hand's gone." I looked down, my hand was fine, but it was a firecracker.
Yeah.
This was like an M100 or an M80. I mean, this was a massive. This was a massive explosion. And this guy's hand, I think both hands, were like blown apart. I mean, it was like this guy was going to need major reconstruction.
Shout out Jason Pierre-Paul.
It was like a wartime type injury. I mean, it looked awful. I mean, it was
go
like
Dodgers. Now I don't have any
Jesus.
fingers to put
And
all
then,
of
of
my
course-
rings.
And by the way, I got to share the screen on this one.
Oh,
too.
please don't show me this dude's hand getting blown up.
No, I'm not going to share that. Better yet.
Can I give you a take on the World Series?
Yeah,
though?
do it. Go for it. I'm just going to show this as you do it.
Starting pitchers are dead. It's over.
Look at that.
It's over for starting pitchers. That is a man who has been coasting on the DL. By
I
the
mean,
way,
you know you got a lot of money when you're willing to take your shirt off and you're kind of pudgy.
hey man, that dude's going to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, seriously.
Arguably the greatest starting pitcher of the 21st century. So,
Except in the playoffs.
Well, except in the playoffs.
The irony, now he's got rings. He's got multiple rings.
He's got two. I don't know what Giants fans are going to be able to say about this one because it counts. I'm not sure. I understand the complaints about 2020. This one, there's not much to complain about. But, it's amazing what money can buy. They did a hell of a job. They're all in on their team. They went and got great players. They played great. I mean, Freddie Freeman, what a dude. And then starting pitching is dead. And it's something that, we saw that. I think you look around the playoffs and there's a pretty clear indication that if you have maybe one or two starting pitchers, you can get the job done everywhere else with bullpen arms. And I know the Tigers did it. I know that the Guardians did it. You kind of go down the line of all these teams. I mean, even the Yankees did it, even though they were trying to roll out starters there. I mean, they just had to ride these bullpen arms. This is the way of the world. And I'm very curious to see if Buster Posey and and his new buddy can adapt to the way that this goes, because I know that was a full-on issue inside the front.
Blow that shit in my.
I don't want to watch that shit.
Hold on, I'm going to show it to the people just because it's rare that we get graphic stuff like this.
Yeah,
but
you're
this
going to
is
get
the
non-monetized here, Lair.
This is the idiot. Oh no! Oh my God!
Fuck!
Oh, and here comes his buddy, bro. He's got a skateboard, and he's like can't look at it, and his hand's bleeding, and his other hand's bleeding. Both hands are bleeding.
Oh no!
And,
he's lost his fingers.
My gosh, he's got his hand, his poor hand.
Fuck.
Oh my God!
Jesus Christ!
All right, we'll stop showing right
Go
there.
Dodgers.
How about this? How about just have a beer? What happened to just have a beer?
Well, dumbasses got to go do dumbass shit.
Oh,
Darwin Awards.
How do you explain that? To your wife or girlfriend or parents?
Well, that man's never known the touch of a woman. So let's be clear about that.
Oh man,
he's an adult man wearing a jersey on a. Come on.
Quality jersey at that.
No, starting pitching's dead, and I know that the Giants under Farhan were adamant on trying to implement such mentalities under the prior regime, and I know that was a point of contention with the higher ups in the front office, higher than Farhan, and Farhan might have been right. Just saying, because starting pitching's dead. Something to keep in mind moving into the 2025 season.
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, you'd be better off with like 35 relievers than two good starters.
Totally.
And today, the last topic of the show tonight is the Giants hired Zach Managian as their 11th general manager. Can you name the previous 10
general managers of the
Giants?
San Francisco Giants?
We can work backwards. Pete Patula was the most recent. Before that,
Scott Harris.
Prior to that,
it was Bobby Evans.
Robert Evans, yes. Before that,
Brian Sabian.
Sabes, 96 to 2015. That's a long run.
This is when you take over, Lair.
Before Sabes, Bob Quinn.
Bob Quinn, fair. Okay. I should have known that one. That's
before Bob Quinn, 86 to 92. Al Rosen.
Oh, right.
Maybe one of the greatest general managers of all time.
Very, very true.
Al Rosen won the Giants the 87 season.
Yes, he did. By
trading for Mitchell, Lefferts, and Trevecki, and then Don Robinson, and then Rick Russell, and then Hendu. And the Giants won the division that year. And then stupidly let Hendu go to the A's, and he was terrific. Tom Haller was the pre-Al Rosen general manager. These were some lean years, 81, 82. 82 was a good year, but 83, 84, 85, bad years. Before that, Speck Richardson. Oh, my God. Speck Richardson, the man who traded Bill Madlock for Fred Brining, Al Holland, Ed Whitson. Oh, my God.
You got a Horace Stoneham in here.
Horace Stoneham, who was the owner for a 6-year period, was the general manager. That's how cheap the Giants were in the first half of the 70s. Yeah. And you know what? I really believe if you go chart the Giants, you'll find that the Giants in the late 60s had the best farm system going.
Yeah.
They had Mays. They had McCovey. They had Cepeda. They had Willie Kirkland. They had Jim Ray Hart. They had Gary Matthews. They had Gary Maddox. They produced George Foster. I mean, all these guys were Giants, Jack Clark. And then Horace Stoneham became the general manager between 70 and 75, and the system bottomed out. And it probably didn't rebuild itself until Al Rosen came on the scene a decade later. But the first Giants general manager in San Francisco was Chub Feeney. He 47 back in New York to 69 here in San Francisco. Then Stoneham, then Richardson, then Haller, Rosen, Quinn, Sabian, Bobby Evans, Scott Harris, Pete Petula, and now the brother of Perry Manasian, the Angels GM, Zach Manasian.
He's doing a wonderful job.
Who comes over from the Brewers. Do you know anything about Manasian?
He was Farhan's first hire.
Yeah. Or actually, I should say the Giants got him in 2019 from the Brewers. He gets promoted from within. So this is not Buster going outside. Buster's now had 2 hires. He's had the pitching coach from within, JP Martinez, and now the GM hire from within. I saw Marty Lurie suggested that my good friend Billy Owens might get the job as the farm director replacing Manasian, which would be my desire as well. We'll see.
Yeah.
But what can you tell us? What do you think, Dieter? Have you written about this yet? Do you have a take on Zach Manasian as the GM?
I had a sense that this was coming down the pipeline later this week, so I emptied the clip on the 1-month anniversary, and I'll do it. I told you so. I told you so. No one was going to take this job.
You're on record as saying they're going to hire Zach Manasian?
No, I'm not on the record saying they were going to hire Zach Manasian. I'm on the record saying that they weren't going to be able to get top tier talent to take this job under Buster. And
you don't like him.
They didn't even hire someone who was already an assistant GM. They didn't even hire.
Promoted a guy from within, but I mean, I would say, what's his brother done?
His brother
hasn't even gotten the Angels to the playoffs, and he's playing in the second largest market in the country.
I can't judge a guy on his brother. I would sure hope that no one's judging me on my brother. Shout out, Jack. Happy birthday.
All right.
But, and probably in reverse. So I
can be a frosty Thanksgiving at the Kurtenbach household.
Yeah, fuck me.
Hey, what did you say to me on a live stream?
Yeah, I'm just saying. I'm an asshole. But I would this job was presented in such a preposterous manner. They wasted no time putting Buster in charge. No experience, nothing. And then the first month, he just hangs out. I'm going to learn the lay of the land. Okay. You know what? That's prudent. Fair enough. You want to get an idea of what you're doing because you have no experience. That makes sense. But when they're interviewing more than a dozen people for this job, and top candidates like Scott Sharp are saying, nah, I'm not taking this job because you're going to have me do the job of a number 1 for the recognition and the pay of a number 2. And in a situation where if this doesn't go right, and I'm getting handed a shit sandwich here that I got to fix, when this doesn't go right, they're not firing Buster. Buster's ownership. So they're going to blame me. So I get none of the love and all of the blame. I'll wait for the next one. And it wasn't just Scott Sharp. This was a lot of dudes and ladies who said, nah, I'm good. This is a weird situation and I'm out. And I said that he wasn't going to be able to get anybody from the outside. and he had to hire from within, and he didn't even hire the guy that they thought they would use from within in Shelley. They went one rung lower. I don't know if this guy's good or not, but he better be, because he's running the show now.
Do you know who was on the list? Do we have any idea who was interviewed?
Billy Owens was interviewed. Deshaun Watson was interviewed.
Who?
Deshaun Watson.
Okay. Was he
Astros.
Boston? Okay, Astros.
Yeah.
Might have been
and
Boston for a while.
and then Logan White was interviewed.
He was. Okay, Logan White has got a lot of success with the Dodgers and Padres in the amateur draft.
Mm-hmm. He was interviewed. Those are the names. Thad Levine. Kim Ng didn't even want to get interviewed, from my understanding.
Logan White's interesting. They didn't go with Logan White.
And then
is he still in San Diego, Dieter?
Yeah, he is. And then Thad Levine said no, and I'm pretty sure they had interview is I can't knock down interview, but Scott Sharp he's the director of farm system for Kansas City, assistant GM there, and he kind of looked at the situation, to my understanding, and said pass. So I think they wanted to go with Sharp, but he pulled himself out.
Interesting.
This thing is not great.
I don't know what to say about Minasian. I did do a deep dive today and kind of look up a bunch of things about him. And I'll say this: I didn't see a lot of amateur talent that he was connected to.
Right.
But he was instrumental in the pursuits of CC Sabathia, Zach Greinke, Carlos Gomez, Josh Hader, Corey Knebel, Gene Segura, Will Smith. But those are all free agents that the Brewers signed. Now,
well, CC Sabathia they traded for mid-season. That's kind of a weird thing to be associated with.
Yeah, so I don't know. He's supposedly got a strong scouting background.
Larry, all we need to say is this. I'm not going to pretend as if I had a great understanding of a lot of the people whose names got looped in with this job. Like, I had to do a lot of crash courses on people because a name came across in a text, or, Susan Slusser, who does great work at the Chronicle, put their name in there and said that was someone who interviewed. Like, I'm not somebody who has, a roster here where I know third, fourth, fifth on the depth chart in front offices. This guy wasn't interviewed. I haven't heard this dude's name brought up, but maybe once or twice in 5 years.
I'll say this: he's not Steve Wilkes. He's not floating around from job to job. He spent 14 seasons with the Brewers.
Yeah.
I agree with the Wood Pit here. I would have hired Stephen Vogt last year. I said it at the time. Said it at the time.
Well, who would be a great manager for this team is Buster Posey, but he can't be a manager because he's an owner, so he has to be the general manager now.
He's not even that. He's the director of ops or whatever.
Right, because he couldn't possibly have made his own position to be a roving scout or something. No, he had to have the ball. And and Johnson's like, yeah, well, when he asks for it, you give it to him. It's like, no, you're the owner of the team. You're the CEO of the team. Not the CEO, but chairman of the team. Maybe put on some guardrails so that when someone who doesn't have experience and is by all account an extremely affable, well communicating, and sharp dude, but someone who has no experience says, I would like the top job, you don't just say, oh yeah, sure. And then you wait a month and then you hire somebody from within to actually do that job who isn't even being interviewed for regular GM jobs, much less one which is truly the director of baseball operations. The whole thing stinks to high heaven, Larry, and it's stunk since the day they fired Farhan, which, again, to be clear, he needed to go, but you needed to actually have a plan, and I don't see a plan here.
Who's the guy? Who's the guy you'd go after? Just give me one name. Any name. I don't care.
Anthony Santander.
From the Orioles.
I'll
tell you, the guy that I think's underrated that I would go after, it would be great to get Soto. It would be great to get Alonso, something like that. I like those guys. But to me, Teoscar Hernandez. Come on, don't overthink this. Just go take a proactive. Dodgers, are going to be going after Soto, going after this Japanese pitcher. They're thinking about the biggest names. Go with a strong initial offer for a guy like Teoscar who signed early last year. Give him a 3-year deal for big money. Don't get off of the 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. Keep it short, 3-year deal, but for big money over market value, and get it done. Go get your second, middle of the bat hitter to go with Chapman, and then you can take your time with the rest of it. But I would say go get one really, really good middle of the order bat that you can sign right away so that you can use that to attract Polar Bear or use that to attract Soto or just use that. Just have that second guy.
I'm of the mindset that this team needs to. I mean, I'm glad. I agree with Buster. This team needs to be scouting focused. They need to create their own stars. That is not going to be something that just happens anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean,
but Santander did hit 44 home runs last year. It should be noted.
Yeah, in a small ballpark.
Well,
all right, let's hit the
anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's small compared to this park.
Fair enough.
I mean, the Giant Park is the least homer-friendly park in the game again for the next for the last 5 years.
Now the Coliseum's done for sure.
Claw Daddy Vending says LK shot it down yesterday, but we need to make a move that impacts now. First and a third for Myles Garrett and a third for Njoku. We have the cap space. We must win now. Kick the can down the road for a Purdy deal. Man, it would, I don't think Garrett's going anywhere, but man, I like that trade. A first and a third for Garrett and Njoku. Here's the thing. I don't like trading number ones, but when you're inside your window, I think it's almost safer than draft choices. There's a failure rate in draft choices. There's no failure rate in Myles Garrett, but you got to make it all work financially, and I don't think it's probably going to. Third string all pro says Bosa jersey sales were the highest selling this week. By the way, Chase Senior did a poll, and he said, let me see what the poll question said. But
I'm sure the online community is going to be extremely representative of reality.
Well, whether they are or not, what is it? Where is it? Here it is. 49er fans, do you still support Nick Bosa after he crashed NBC's post-game interview wearing a MAGA hat? Chase Senior asked this poll question, do you still like and support Nick Bosa? 89% of the people on X said yes. Only 11% said no. There was over 10,000 people who responded
on X, it should be noted. But also, X. Not a new thing.
Sorry. I like how X is now considered a bastion of the right when it was literally the opposite, that long ago. But now that whatchamacallit's running it, it's thought to be right.
There are a tremendous amount of Nazis.
I always thought it was funny that people talking about Kaepernick. It's like, that's not a good comparison. That's not a good comparison. It's like, if you don't realize that's not a good comparison and why that's not a good comparison, I don't think I can help you. I mean, if Colin Kaepernick had put on a Barack Obama hat, nobody would have cared. Nobody would have cared, and there would be no controversy. So it's really
the
not
NFL would have still fined him, to be fair.
And Bosa's going to get fined. 49er throwback says John Lynch has done a good job, just not an excellent job. Okay. Class Limperio, happy Halloween, fellas. Is Matos coming back soon? And can he add anything? He did. And did Bethune get snaps over Graham? No, Bethune did not get snaps over Graham. They both were inactive.
No, Bethune played last week.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
He did.
Really?
Yeah, about 4
How many
or 5
snaps? Okay, I didn't see that.
4 or 5. Middle of the game. I can pull it up.
Oh, I guess I didn't realize. I guess I didn't see Bethune on the inactive list. Graham was definitely inactive.
No, he was.
As far as Matos, I don't know if Matos is coming back soon. I don't know what he can add. I really don't. I haven't seen enough of him to tell you what he can actually add. He's a big-bodied guy who can play defensive end, and he can play inside, in a pass rushing snap.
I remember in that Rams game, he wholly outplayed Floyd to the point where it looked like they switched on the depth chart. So that's something.
Papa J says, Larry, can you admit that Tanner Mordecai will never be the answer? Yes, I can. I like Tanner Mordecai more than I like the Niners' backup quarterbacks, but doesn't mean I think he's going to be a star. MF says, damn, Andrew Friedman is rehiring Farhan.
Is that factual?
Why are you saying damn?
Is that breaking news?
That's what MF said.
I mean, the thing is that Farhan was going to get another job somewhere. The issue with Farhan is he got Peter principled. He was promoted to his point of incompetence. And there's no question that he is And by the way, this is something the San Francisco Giants specifically suggested to him, that he would be a perfect GM, that Buster Posey would handle the big picture and the communications, and that Farhan Zaidi would handle the day-to-day operations of the baseball team. Because there are a few people better at actually working the waiver wire and all these things, handling the minutia of a
This was
baseball
offered
roster.
to him?
Yeah. How do you think that went over?
Well, yeah, so he's going to take a lesser job with the Dodgers. I mean, he's just not. He has no. He's glib and he's smart.
Yeah,
but his intelligence is very compartmentalized. Like he doesn't know anything about sales at all, and so, and you got to have people skills. And I don't know that he's got people skills, and I don't think he's got sales ability. I know he doesn't have sales.
But like he's going to now move into the job that he previously held as GM with another team. And it's frankly just, I don't know if that's happened already. Apologies for not being up on it. But like, he'll go into that role. He'll be great at that role. He'll make plenty of money in that role. That should have been his role. He got Peter principled. And the Giants were
a behind the scenes guy. He's a think tank behind the scenes guy. He's not a front man. 100%. Papa J, what other quarterback in the past 4 years has gone to the conference championship twice in a row and went to the Super Bowl once other than Mahomes? It's Brock, Mr. Irrelevant Purdy. Damn, that guy sucks. LOL. There you go. Papa J, thank you for throwing that out. You Trippin says, get Trey Hendrickson from Cincinnati for an extra third or Azeez Ojulari. Hendrickson's got 1 year left on his deal, or a free agent like Ojulari. That is a third for a guy who's a free agent, but I will say this about Ojulari. I wouldn't mind signing him. I think whoever gets him next is going to get his best ball. Anthony M, 7-foot velvet maroon whales.
Is this code?
I have no idea. I was hoping you knew what that was about.
Are we being hypnotized?
I have no idea. MF says Manasian mandated Bob Melvin to fire the hitting coaches.
Manasian mandated Melvin is a fun 1, 2, 3.
There you go. Is that true? Did Manasian tell Bo Mel to fire the hitting coaches? Well, they can't hit.
Coaches been fired?
I don't know, but they can't hit. They should be fired. Mindspringer, sign Akeem Butler and make him a tight end. Iowa State wide receiver.
You mean XFL legend?
Yeah.
St. Louis Battlehawk Akeem Butler? It ain't happening.
His highlight reel from Iowa State was awesome, except he can't catch. Fear the Phantom says, favorite Halloween candy, Larry and Dieter. I like some of the I'm not a chocolate guy. I mean, I'll eat whatever. I like a few chocolate bars. I like 100 grand. That's about it.
Oh, love it.
Other than that, I like 100 grand. I like a Rolo. I don't mind a Rolo.
Love it.
They had them the other day at the Niner game. I got a few Rolos in my
that
my
Niner
Browns.
candy bar is dangerous.
Oh, it is dangerous. Other than that, though, I kind of like Swedish Fish, or like Juicy Fruits, or like Sour Patch, or like those sour strings that you can get like individually wrapped.
Give me the citric acid. That's where I'm at.
I like the kind of the fruity gummy type stuff. I like Haribo roulette.
Yeah,
those are great.
That's a good one.
I like that kind of stuff.
Anything gummy sour. Bears. My wife.
Lemonheads are super sour.
I grew up about a mile away from the Lemonhead factory in Chicago, so we were
super sour. They will scar your tongue. They're so sour.
Yeah, I got a little scarring tonight working the front yard. Can I tell you my trick or treat situation here?
Please do, because we only had 5 or 6 trick or treaters all night. I was very disappointed. Yeah. It seems like in the creek, where we are at least, it's like since the pandemic, Dieter, the trick or treating has been very muted. I'm not sure if that's why.
We get loaded up here in Alameda.
We got a lot of kids that live here.
Yeah.
They're just not trick-or-treating.
We get a lot of kids. I mean, we get our neighborhood gets a lot of folks from out of town coming in to get some candy, which is all fair. You know, we're giving it out left, right, and center. I got two different bowls.
You're saying they're not native of they're coming. They're non-islanders coming to your island. You're like Martha's Vineyard over there. Did you ship them away real quickly and say they're not welcome here? Did you do that?
Not. I give them all candy gladly.
Okay. You're not part of our island.
We are. Let's put it to you this way.
Dieter lives on an island, a very nice island.
Our block is been marked as we are marks. That's what's happened.
What do you mean?
And listen, it's so we're just a mile or two away from the Fruitvale area. You can't really go trick or treating in the Fruitvale area because it's not a great area. So they come into a nice, safe neighborhood and they go trick or treating. Makes perfect sense to me.
Do you notice that the adults on the trick or treating seem like they're drinking more than ever?
No, but
it seems like there's a drink.
Yes,
everybody here they're walking and sipping, and unless it's coffee, I think that
is 100% something that's happening with the Alamedans. It does seem as if a lot of parents reek of weed with their kids, which is something we'll get into at a different story.
Unbelievable, really?
Yeah. It was actually kind of like, really? Okay, you're high as fuck. That's not cool. Don't worry. That's just a 4-year-old. They don't need to go anywhere. So I have two different.
That's probably not good.
We also
I don't want to judge. I'm not going to judge. It's legal in California.
It's legal in California. Like, get a gummy. Don't reek of weed. But I got two things. One, we are inundated with teens, and teens suck on Halloween. They're dipshits. Okay.
Did you ever see Curb Your Enthusiasm where the girl TP'd Larry's house?
I did.
Oh, it's a great one. Classic one.
When I bought a house,
I want some candy. He's like, "What's your costume?" She's like,
yes.
I'm a girl."
That one.
He's like, "Well, I'm not giving you candy." He's like, "What? You have to give candy." He's like, "No, I don't." And then they TP'd the house, and his wife's like, "Larry, why didn't you just give him the candy?" Classic.
Sounds like a Family Guy recreation of Curb Your Enthusiasm. But so I do bowl of smaller candies, load them up, those kind of miniature ones, right? Load them up so the little kids can get 2, and then anyone who doesn't have a costume can get 1. Okay, just take one.
Really, you mandate like how many? I'm just like, take a handful.
No,
wait, come on, that's all you got? Take another handful. I challenge the kids to like go for it.
That's great because here's what
what do I need all that candy for? Just take it.
Well, we use up all our candy, Larry. We don't. We have.
Okay.
I had 700 pieces of candy. We were done. We had to call it. There were still people out there looking for candy, and I'm giving away 2 and 1 at a time. So here's the other thing that I do.
Wow, you're really busy out there.
I know. I stand out there for 4 hours straight and perform because the other thing that I do is I have
you don't scare little kids.
I do not scare little kids, but I do scare the shit out of teenagers, and it is fun.
People who scare little kids need to be beaten.
Correct. With little kids, I'm down at their level. I'm showing them, pick whichever 2 you want.
You're not down at their level. You're like 6'7".
I'm bending down. I'm going down. I got a toddler. I spend a lot of time down. And so they get to everyone clear out of the way so that the little kids can come up. I'm all about it. That's great. The best part, though, is you get these teenagers who are just they're assholes. They're shitheads.
They're about to TP your house, and
they're all,
shaving cream in your bushes.
They got the world's worst costumes, if they're even a costume. They all got this fucking attitude, and they're just the worst. They suck. And so what I do is I scare the living shit out of them. I get a big old pumpkin head bucket, and I put a towel over the top of it. And in there, I have full-size candy bars, okay, to the brim, full-size candy bars. And then what I also have are
a rat
onions, potatoes, weird random shit. And what I do is I say there are 3 rules. You can take 2 pieces of candy right now. You can pick whichever 2 you want. There's a lot of good options in there. Pick 2, go on your way.
By the way, you're breaking all the rules of Halloween.
Fuck this. This
you have
hilarious.
rules. I mean, come on. There's not supposed to be rules.
Fantastic. The second part is I say, or you can play the game. And the game has 3 rules. 1, you get 3 seconds to grab one thing. 2, you can't look. And 3, you can't scream. And they build this thing up. To go. They're losing their mind, and they're all trying to pretend I'm tough. And then they chicken out, and they're all trying to impress their girlfriends and this and that. And I get so many teenage boys screaming like little girls as I jump scare them real fast. Half of the time they get the full-size candy bar. Sometimes they get an onion, which is somehow now like more funny to them, which,
they're going to throw that onion through your window.
Nah, they think it's hilarious. They literally do because they don't know. But you can't scream. And if you scream, you're disqualified. Man, I got so many dipshit kids. All these tough guys like, I'll go first. I'm tough. I'll go first. And they go, hee. Oh, God, it was so much fun. My house.
Esteban Clementi says, I like you, Krug, but you do make bad calls from time to time. Thank you, Esteban.
Yeah.
Thanks for keeping me honest.
Like
Papa J says, And it's more than time to time.
You're so over my fucking Halloween story. Let's go back to comments.
Well, no, I just want to finish up because it's almost midnight,
done.
and I'm going early tomorrow. Papa J says, "Hey Larry, do you do this 24?" Now here we go. Hey Papa J, hey Larry, do you do this 24/7? It seems like you're always live on the radio and on the internet.
This is actually an avatar. I'm talking to a humanoid run by AI. I'm real. Larry isn't.
I actually had a lot of free time today. I mean, I know it seems like I'm super busy, but I went to the gym today. I lifted. I did some errands. I was free most of the day, and then I was on the radio. I guess I wasn't on the radio today, or was I? Forget. But I'm be on the radio tomorrow, and then I'm doing Niners Nightly at 6 every night. So I'm on the radio from 6 to 7. But then I usually stream, once a day or twice a day, and So and Dieter and I have been hooking up on Thursday nights, and it's been good. Okay. We got this one. Hey, Larry. Wait a second. That was the last one. We got this one. Max says, Larry, do you watch most or all of the Giants games? This season is way too long, in my humble opinion. I do watch a lot of the Giants games. I tape them all. So I just have everyone taped no matter what. But you know what? It's like one of those things where, there's only a few games that I watch like right when they're live. It's like, I'm not going to stay inside on a Saturday at 1:00 and make my family stay inside. I'm going to tape that game. And then after dinner, when my kids are doing other things, I'll pop it in and watch, the whole game.
Literally
I'll watch
popping in a tape.
Well, not popping in, but in the old school days, I'll hit the button and watch it on the DVR. So I would
be even
say
cooler if you actually taped it.
I do watch every game, but here's the thing. I think baseball, there's like always like a 3 or 4 week stretch of the season where I just don't want to miss a game. And it's usually when the Giants are swinging the bats. When the Giants are hot and swinging the bats, I want to watch every game. So I kind of like watching the Giants more on the road than I do at home because they score more on the road. It's a better TV show. It's a way more action-packed TV show on the road than it is at home, if you believe it or not, if that's what you care about. So I watch the road games more. The home games I will watch. But you know what? If I get bored, like when it gets to college football season, I'll probably watch college football on a Saturday. When it gets to NFL season, I'm definitely watching the NFL on a Sunday.
Luckily, the Giants haven't really challenged you there because their seasons are over by the end of August.
The Giants are boring as hell. The Giants are a boring, bad baseball team that don't hit. I don't like. I want to see athleticism. I want to see doubles, triples, homers. They don't hit doubles, triples, and homers. No. So I don't watch them. I try not to watch them that much. And I feel like I should because I'm a lifelong fan. I'm never going to switch my allegiance, but I don't like this when they can't hit at all. And there's usually like a month of the season over the course of 4 months where they really can't hit at all. I just can't watch. I cannot watch awful baseball, guys swinging, just grounding out, getting themselves. No. Blood Moon says, G. Wilson price himself out. Thoughts, Slayton? Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson was awesome tonight. That would be the other guy. I mean, I mentioned this to Dieter before. I think that, that the Niners need to find a wide receiver, not for this year, but for next year. And if the Jets are stupid enough to move Garrett Wilson, I want to be that team that they move him to, because he's 4.38 and he's a great route runner. And there's only a handful of guys in the league that have sub 4.4 speed that also run great, crisp routes and have terrific hands. And you saw that tonight. So Garrett Wilson, in my mind, is worth a first-round draft choice because he would be and will be, if he comes here, the 49ers' number one wide receiver. He's better than Debo. He's better than Ayuk. He's better than Pearsall. He's better than Cowing. He's better than JJ. He would be their number one receiver. So I'd be willing to trade a first-round pick. And you know what? If I'm the New York Jets, I don't have the quarterback of the future on my roster. I need to find the quarterback of the future ASAP. And how do you do that? You usually have to accumulate multiple number ones. So even though the first blush, you'd say, oh, the Jets are never going to trade Garrett Wilson, nor should they. They really should, because they're not winning right now with him. He doesn't have a great rapport with Rodgers, I don't think, and based on what I've read and followed this year. And I just think that they need an arsenal of ammo to go get their quarterback of the future more than they need Garrett Wilson. So I would make them the offer that they can't refuse, the number one, at the deadline. It doesn't cost you money. You got a guy on a rookie contract that's going to be that you'll control for the next couple of years. So I kind of think Garrett Wilson makes a lot of sense, but you're not going to find that good of a receiver unless you find him in the draft. And it's hard to pick receivers in the draft. There's a huge failure rate, huge bust rate. So if I could have Garrett Wilson, I would like to have him, and I'd offer a number one.
Same.
I don't think he's going anywhere. That being said,
I'm with you.
That's gonna do it. When are you on KBR again, Dieter? When are you appearing next?
I'll follow you up tomorrow. On the leader.
Okay, so you're up tomorrow night at 7.
Tomorrow night at 7. If you
what
like Larry,
what's the plan? What are you going to talk about, or do you kind of plan that out in the morning?
I mean, the morning, probably mid-afternoon. I should probably get on that. Is what I'm hearing from you.
Well, what do you anticipate? I mean, it's the bye week. Are you talking Warriors? Are you talking Giants? Are you talking Niners?
I think I will open up the lines and see where Giants fans are at after I take a little bit of a half victory lap on "Told You So."
Good stuff. That's going to do it. That is going to do it for us. Hope everybody's having a great night. Thanks to Dieter. We're going to finish before midnight, just a minute or two before midnight. Halloween has officially ended in 2 minutes on the West Coast. Dieter, great stuff, man. Have a great night.
If you're on the East Coast and still watching this, reevaluate your life.
Thanks to Pig and a Pickle. Thanks to Better. Thanks to all of you. Thanks to Sharp Corners. Thanks to Dieter. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been